Chapter 1921. Shun Julie's gaze fell on the sleeping little Shuima. He whispered, "Could it be that she also has two personalities? When will her other personality reappear?" Ning Shuima coughed softly. See, Shun Julie was indeed suspicious, but he suspected that she had two personalities before she could finish her thought. A suction force from the void suddenly pulled her in. Her vision turned black, and her body sank. Then she slowly opened her eyes and raised her hand to rub her eyebrows. Then she looked at her small hand. It was very solid, very good. She was possessed again. She looked at the person sitting in front of the table and thought for a while. Then she got out of bed and approached him from behind. Shinjili seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He said without turning his head, "Did I wake you up? Go back to sleep. You still have some homework to do tomorrow. I came back to check on you." Ning Shuima chuckled. "Are you raising me as your disciple?" Shinjuli's back stiffened slightly. He turned his head and looked at her from head to toe. Shuima. She hadn't seen him in a long time. She hadn't hugged him in a long time. Although she was hugging him from 50,000 years ago, Ning Shuima didn't care. Ning Shuima lazily yawned. She straightforwardly pulled open his sleeve and sat in his embrace. She greedily sniffed the cold yet familiar scent on his body. She muttered, "Great God, I missed you." She even rubbed her head against his chest. Shinjuli's eyes suddenly lit up. He pulled her away from his arms and looked into her eyes. "Shuima? You're that Shuima?" Ning Shuima raised her head and kissed his chin. "There's only one Shuima. There's no other." The way she spoke and the way she handled things was very different from the naive and innocent little Shuima. It was that her. She was the one who had intimate contact with him. Shinjuli's eyes were still fixed on her eyes. That day, she fell asleep halfway through her speech. "What do you mean by 50,000 years? Ning Shuima rubbed her eyebrows. Mother Earth had said before that she had transmigrated 50,000 years later, so she definitely couldn't tell anyone about this. She wrapped her arms around his neck and said in a half-joking tone, "Almighty, I've been thinking about you for 50,000 years, sob sob." 50,000 years of time travel was really not easy for her. She had transmigrated here to investigate the truth and change history. She snuggled in his arms like a lazy cat. Shun Juli suddenly raised his hand to cover the light of the night-luminescent pearl with a thick veil. Then, he carried her up and said in a low voice, "I missed you too. You're finally back." A white light flashed from her body, and her figure returned to the appearance of a 17 or 18-year-old girl. Ning Shuima stared blankly. She looked at her own figure that had suddenly become impressive, and the corner of her mouth twitched. She naturally knew what Shun Jili wanted to do, but he still had a big battle tomorrow, so it wasn't good for him to expend too much energy. Just as she was placed on the bed, she rolled inwards and pulled the blanket over her. She nestled against the blanket and yawned. "It's getting late. Let's sleep separately." She laid with her face facing the wall and heard some rustling beside the bed. The night-luminescent pearl's light was hazy, but also left a blurry shadow on the wall. Even though Ning Shuima didn't turn around, she could see his shadow. She saw his shadow slowly taking off his clothes. His movements were still elegant, and he could take off his clothes with a new style. Ning Shuima admired him, but her heart was thumping wildly. Ever since she possessed little Shuima's body again, she had conveniently accepted all the things that happened before. Chapter 1922. Ever since she possessed little Shuima's body again, she had accepted everything that had happened before. After knowing that she had traveled back in time, little Shuima came back automatically. At the same time, her body returned to the appearance of a 12 or 13-year-old. Little Shuima did not know what had happened, but she could feel that Shun Juli had treated her differently from before. Her thoughts were still stuck at the time when Shun Juli saved her. Not only did he not detoxify her, but he also kept her in the quilt, and she fainted from the heat. After she woke up, she did not know why she was on the top of the lonely peak and why she was still in Shun Juli's arms. She had always liked to be in Shun Juli's arms. When she saw herself in his arms, her eyes immediately curved like the moon, and she asked him, "Julie, Are you going to agree to my marriage? She even touched her face with her small hands and was a little distressed, but my face is still scratched. What about the herbs? Where are the herbs? All right, you almost suffocated me. At that time, what she said was a little confusing. Shinjuli originally looked at her with a complicated gaze, but after hearing what she said, his expression changed. Without saying anything, he checked her body. After being stunned for a while, he looked at her with an unfathomable gaze. Did you forget everything that happened just now? Little Shuama was confused. What happened just now? Shinjili seemed to be a little shocked at that time. His expression was not right, and he looked at her over and over again. He even reached out his finger and pressed it between her eyebrows to read her memory. After reading her memory, his expression became even more unfathomable. He did not say anything else and directly took her down the peak. During those few days, Shinjili treated her very well. Not only did he personally heal the scratches on her body and face, but he also personally urged her to study and learn to read every day. At night, he slept in the same room with her, but they slept on different beds. Little Shuama did not understand, but Shinjili did not want to. Although the two of them were in the same room, nothing happened. Shinjili still treated little Shuama as a child and raised her as a special child. Ning Shuama heaved a sigh of relief when she recalled the memories of little Shuama. It turned out that Shinjili still had a bottom line. Very good. She had just breathed a sigh of relief when the bed behind her sank slightly. Obviously, Shinjili had climbed onto her bed. Ning Shuama's heart skipped a beat. She instinctively wrapped the blanket around herself, but before she could wrap it tightly, a corner of the blanket was pulled away. Then, she felt a warmth on her back. He was hugging her from behind. Almighty, I think it's better if we sleep on separate beds. Haven't we always slept on separate beds? Before she could finish her words, he turned around and blocked her lips. His movements were still elegant and steady, but the words he said were far from what she thought. Tonight, I don't want to sleep on separate beds with you. He said this sentence with his lips close to hers. The pleasant smell of his body completely enveloped Ning Shuama. She was a little dizzy. Although she was not drugged, the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. He hugged her in his arms and kissed her deeply. The kiss made her dizzy and lightheaded, and she could not say a word. She curled up in his arms and could clearly feel the changes in his body. This change made Ning Shuama's face redder, like a freshly cooked crayfish. Actually, she did not want to have sex with him. After all, at this time, he should be conserving his energy and not wasting it. Chapter 1923. Therefore, when her soul was almost drifting after being kissed, she was still able to pull out a wisp of reason to reject him. Don't. Not tonight. She was shocked when she said that. Her voice was very soft and even had a kind of charm. Her resistance was negligible to Shinjili. However, he still respected her. He raised his hand to stop her hands from pushing him away and pushed them above her head. His eyes were extremely deep and dark. When Ning Shuama looked into his eyes, she felt as if she wanted to drown in his gaze. Shinjili looked at her with such eyes and smiled. Why not tonight? His eyes reflected her slightly disheveled clothes, as if he could only see her. Ning Shuama felt as if there was a string in her heart that was gently plucked by someone. She trembled, but still forced herself to say, "You still have a big battle tomorrow. You can't waste too much of your energy." Shinjili smiled. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it was enough to shake one's soul. It doesn't matter. He answered her with 3 words and slowly put his fingers on her shoulder. With a slight movement of his fingers, her clothes fell from her shoulder and her skin was exposed. He kissed her shoulder, while his other hand calmly undid her sash. His movements were methodical, but also very strong. He did not allow anyone to reject him. Ning Shuama was reluctant to reject him. In a blink of an eye, her clothes had already left her body. His skills seemed to have improved. Although his fingertips were very restrained, Ning Shuama's body seemed to be set on fire every time his fingertips touched her. Her blood was boiling, as if she had taken some kind of aphrodisiac. Her heart was filled with a desire because of this fire. She wanted to be one with him or else she would feel empty and uncomfortable. She panted heavily and could not help but hold his neck. She spat out a few words. You've learned it before, right? He was now comparable to an expert in flirting. He made her lose all her rationality and let her be utterly defeated. She softened his arms and let him do whatever he wanted. He rushed in with the force of a thunderbolt. There was also a slight swelling pain, which made her empty heart feel as if it was suddenly filled. She suddenly felt an inexplicable ache in her heart. Her fingers that were originally around his waist and back tightened. Her fingernails left a few marks on his back as she couldn't help but spit out a few words. Be gentler. He didn't know how long the lasted until Ning Xiuma begged for mercy 3 times. Only then did he stop reluctantly. After cleaning her up, he did not let go of her and continued to hold her in his arms. Ning Xiuma nestled in his embrace, her nose filled with his scent. She felt abnormally at ease, but she did not forget her purpose. She placed her palm on his lower abdomen, wanting to test if the god power in his body had decreased. However, she forgot that this body had lost its power. After she pressed on it, she could not use her psychokinesis to probe. His abdominal muscles were really firm. When he was wearing clothes, he looked like a fairy. When he was not wearing clothes, she did not expect his figure to be so good. The muscles of his six-pack were well-defined, with a kind of faintly flowing strength. It felt so good to the touch. Her little hand that was groping around was held by him. He looked at her with a faint smile. Do you want to do it again? Sweat. I don't want it anymore. It would be daybreak if they did it again. Ning Xiuma struggled to free her hand. After thinking for a while, she simply asked, What kind of poison did you use on me again? Chapter 1924. She was here to change the plot, but she was worried that the established setting would not be easy to change. He had used the method of sleeping with her to cure her of the aphrodisiac. Could it be that there were other poisons in her body that required Shun Julie to cure? If that was the case, he would still be defeated in this battle. No, Shun Julie answered. His eyes were shining in the dark. Xiuma, what is going on with you? Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat, but she pretended to be confused. What do you mean? You are obviously the same soul, but your temperament often changes. Ning Xiuma lazily replied. People's temperament will always change. She knew that she could not tell him that she came from 50,000 years in the future, so she thought about it and said something ambiguous. Just like a person, the temperament of 8 or 9 years old is definitely different from the temperament of 20 years old, right? Shinjili looked at her with a deep gaze. Do you mean that your temperament now is the same as when you grow up? He was indeed smart. Ning Xiuma yawned. I am tired. I'm going to sleep. Let's sleep. She simply turned her body and turned her back to him. There was no movement for a long time. Ning Xiuma leaned her ear to listen. When she heard that he was still quiet, she was relieved. Did he fall asleep? It was good that he was asleep. Then he would have the energy to fight tomorrow and beat Luo Jiuchen up. As long as he won this fight, history would be changed by her. If history was completely changed, she seemed to have lost the memories of Shui Mo and Ning Xiuma. Perhaps little Nianma would disappear without a trace. Also, there was the matter of Shuilan. Thinking of Shuilan, Ning Xiuma's heart ached. That person died for her, but she did not have the ability to resurrect him. Can't sleep? Shun Julie's voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Ning Xiuma was shocked. You didn't fall asleep either? You're moving around in my arms. Naturally, I can't sleep. Shun Julie bluntly accused. It turned out that Ning Xiuma had unknowingly turned over in his arms 3 times. Aya, this is not the time to disturb his rest. Ning Xiuma got up and was about to get off the bed. I'll go sleep on the other bed. He stretched out his arm and pulled her back into his embrace. Be good and don't move. It's getting late. We really need to sleep. He closed his eyes. Ning Xiuma wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It was not easy for her to fall asleep in his arms. Forget it. He was the one who was going to fight tomorrow, not her. If she couldn't sleep now, she could sleep during the day. Is there something on your mind? Shen Julie suddenly asked, but he did not open his eyes. She had so many things on her mind. Now, he couldn't even count them. Tell me, I'll solve it for you. Shun Julie hugged her again and rested his chin on her shoulder. His voice sounded lazy. Ning Shuima's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly asked, Guru, if a person, no, a very powerful demon soul is scattered, can you still summon him back? Shinjili did not open his eyes. Do you have any subordinates whose souls are scattered? He added, your subordinates are not very reliable. You have to pay attention to them. You can't just use your fists to make them yield. Attacking their hearts is the best. Attacking their bodies is the worst. Ning Xiuma secretly rolled her eyes. Attacking their hearts is the best. Attacking their bodies is the worst. Right? Guru. However, Shun Jili was right. Little Xiuma's subordinates were indeed very unreliable. They would become her enemies in the future and directly force her into hell. Chapter 1925. Ning Xiuma was still thinking about Shui Ilan and didn't want him to change the topic again. God, do you have any ideas? Shinjili nodded without opening his eyes. I can recall them, but it will take some divine power. Who do you want to save? Ning Xiuma breathed a sigh of relief and muttered in her heart. Even if I tell you who I want to save now, you won't know, she yawned. I'll tell you later. I'm sleepy. Sleep, sleep. She had to find a way to abduct him 50,000 years later. How should she abduct him? This was a difficult problem. She had so many things on her mind and thought it would still be difficult for her to fall asleep, but she didn't expect that she would fall asleep soon after lying in his arms. When she woke up, it was already bright outside, and Shun Julie was nowhere to be seen on the bed. Did he go to the appointment? She sat up and found that her clothes were properly put on. Obviously, Shun Julie had put them on for her. There were several dishes on the table outside the bed, and they were steaming hot. There was also a letter on the table with only 4 words on it. Wait for me to come back. She looked at it and saw that it was all her favorite food, so she jumped down, washed up, and ate without hesitation. She actually wanted to go with Shun Julie to watch the battle between him and Luo Jiochin, but he left without even saying goodbye. She didn't know where they were going to fight, so she couldn't find it. She might as well go with the flow. She always felt that there should be something fishy about why little Shuima was kicked out of the Fanteon Palace, so she would stay and see what happened. She didn't have any psychokinesis now, so she was like an ordinary person. After eating, she had to wash the dishes. Fanteon Palace was a place where immortals lived, so naturally, there was no place to wash dishes. Shinjuli obviously didn't need it, but she had to suffer. Fortunately, she knew that there was a pond in the Fanteon Palace. The pond water was so clear that she could drink it directly, let alone wash the dishes. She walked to the lake with a pile of plates and squatted down to wash them. She had just washed 2 plates when suddenly she felt like she was pushed by a hand from behind. She fell into the lake with a splash. Ning Xiumal was an excellent swimmer. After she fell into the lake, she didn't panic. After her body fell into the water, she suddenly rushed forward under the water. After she was 3 or 4 feet away from the shore, she then popped her head out. She saw the woman in white, who claimed to be Shun Julie's elder sister, standing by the lake. She was the one who pushed her into the water. A dark light flashed in Ning Xiuma's eyes. She knew that there was something fishy about this Fanteon Palace. Now, the fishy thing was here. Was this so-called sister also a peach blossom that liked Shun Julie? Shun Julie had so many admirers. It was so troublesome to pinch them one by one. Ning Xiuma paddled twice in the water and looked at her on the shore. The woman in white was also looking at her. Her eyes were a little cold and even a little condescending. This lake is a sacred lake. It must not be tainted by any filthy things. Why are you washing dishes by the lake? Don't you understand this? The woman in white reprimanded her first. Ning Xiuma looked up at her and asked, does this Fanteon Palace belong to Julie or you? The woman choked. What do you mean? Ning Xiuma said lightly, Julie asked me to wash the dishes here, but you said that I can't. In this Fanteon Palace, do you think you can make decisions for Julie? She believed that Shun Julie would never punish her for such a trivial matter. She simply used him to shut the woman's mouth. Shun Julie was not in the palace, and her little body had lost its power. It would not be good for her to fight with this woman. Chapter 1926. Ning Xiaomo understood this very well. Sure enough, when she said that it was Shun Julie's instruction, the woman's arrogance was reduced. She pursed her lips and said, "Julie likes cleanliness. He wouldn't ask you to wash the dishes here. Where else can I wash if not here?" Ning Xiaomo raised her eyebrows. This was the only place in the whole Fantian Palace that had water. The woman looked at the greasy bowls and chopsticks on the ground. She flicked her sleeves and cast a cleaning spell. The plates and bowls were clean and new. The woman's voice was cold and proud. "Isn't this good?" Ning Xiaomo climbed ashore from the other side. She twisted her drenched clothes and wrinkled her eyebrows. Damn it, it was so troublesome without psychokinesis. She looked at the clean plates and bowls. Her eyes curved into crescents. She smiled and said, "This is really convenient. Sister, since you said so, you must have promised to wash the dishes for me in the future. Well, I'll send the used bowls and bowls directly to your room and let you cast this spell." The woman was speechless. Her face turned cold. "I'm not your sister. Don't call me that." Ning Xiaomo opened her eyes wide. "What do you mean by calling me that? Since Julie calls you sister, as his wife, I naturally have to call you sister." She had an innocent look on her face, which made the woman choke on her words. The woman's pretty face turned pale. Julie won't marry you." Ning Xiaomo raised her eyebrows. "We have slept together, and he has promised to marry me. How do you know that he won't marry me?" The woman's face changed and she blurted out, "You slept together?" She looked at Ning Xiaomo's petite body. "I don't believe it." When Ning Xiaomo woke up, she discovered that she had reverted back to her appearance when she was 12 or 13 years old. Currently, her face was still childish and her eyes were big and round. Ning Xiaomo didn't need to look in a mirror to know that she was very cute right now. The woman knew Shun Julie's character better. She knew that he would never lay his hands on a little girl. In fact, he was not interested in any woman at all. However, he made an exception for this little devil master. Not only did he bring her into the palace, he even slept with her at night. Even during the day, they were practically glued together. She was shocked and angry at the same time. She looked left and right at the little lowly, but she couldn't find anything good about her. The woman in white knew that they were sleeping together. She even reminded Shun Julie about this, implying that he had to be considerate. However, Shun Julie turned a deaf ear to her advice and continued to do his own thing. Sleeping together was possible, but in the same room? Impossible, right? Perhaps this little girl didn't even know what it meant to sleep in the same room. "You know what it means to sleep in the same room?" the woman asked casually. Ning Xiaomo glanced at her and then looked at her again. Her bright eyes made the woman's hair stand on end. "Why are you looking at me like this?" Ning Xiaomo tilted her head and looked at her. "Sister, you're not married yet, right?" The woman was speechless. "So what?" "Sister, as an unmarried woman, it's not appropriate for you to talk about sleeping in the same room or not, right?" Ning Xiaomo's face was still as naive as before, but it was enough to infuriate people to death. "I feel that you should discuss this matter with your husband in the future. He will naturally teach you." That white-clothed woman was not prepared for her to say such indecent words. Her charming face flushed red. Nonsense. Chapter 1927. Ning Xiaomo blinked her eyes. "Does sister think I'm wrong? Sister doesn't want to discuss the matter of sharing a room with my future brother-in-law, but only with a little girl like me?" The white-clothed woman's living environment was clearly a lot simpler than Ning Xiaomo's. She was also much more ethereal. Hearing Ning Xiaomo's words, she was infuriated. Her eyebrows raised. "Are all devils so uneducated? Why do you keep saying that you are in the same room as me?" Ning Xiaomo's eyes widened even more. "Isn't sister the one who brought this up? Sister also keeps on talking about sharing a room. It's very cheerful." When the woman in white met her, she felt like a scholar meeting a soldier, unable to explain herself. Her pretty face turned red then white, white then red, her fingers clenched and then put down. Ning Xiaomo also felt that it's about time. At this time, she should stop while she's ahead. She smiled gently, smiling brightly at the woman in white. Well, I won't discuss this matter with sister. It's embarrassing. Sister can go all out, but I'm thin-skinned, so I can't. Goodbye, sister. Later, if there are any dirty bowls and chopsticks, I'll send them to sister. She hugged the clean bowls and chopsticks and turned to leave. The woman in white held back for a moment, then coldly said, "You're not allowed to call me sister." "Well, I won't call you that. Then I'm leaving. Auntie, goodbye." Ning Xiuma didn't even turn her head. She just waved her hand and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. The woman in white, "Auntie? Auntie, am I really that old?" She couldn't help but look at herself in the mirror by the lake. Her white dress fluttered. Her facial features were beautiful, and there wasn't a single wrinkle on her face. She looked at Ning Xiuma's back disappearing into the cover of the flowers and trees, then suddenly smiled. Her smile seemed to contain a deep meaning. Ning Xiuma was practicing martial arts. Because her small body had suffered from qi deviation once, her tendons and veins were blocked, so her mental power was blocked. Therefore, she was unable to practice martial arts. Shen Juli had obviously been helping her recuperate for the past few days. Whether it was the food he gave her or the tea she drank, they all had the meaning of medicine. He even taught her a set of recovery skills so that she could cultivate whenever she was free. Ning Xiuma was sitting cross-legged on the cloud bed in Shun Juli's bedroom. She was deep in thought. The conclusion was that Xiuma's expulsion from the palace must have something to do with this woman in white. She had Xiuma's memories, so she knew that the woman in white had come to Fantian Palace 3 days ago. At that time, little Xiuma had just woken up. Shun Juli gave her a very simple introduction, saying that this woman was called Miao Fan, a very Buddhist name. He asked her to call this woman elder sister. When Shun Juli was in front of her, Miao Fan was still kind to her. But when Shun Juli was not in front of her, the way she looked at little Xiuma was not very friendly. But she didn't do anything else. This Miao Fan's cooking skills were very good. For the past 3 days, she had been sending delicious food to Shun Juli every day. Shun Juli ate very little. Basically, little Xiuma, this greedy little girl, had taken advantage of it. Little Xiuma had a simple temperament and didn't know the sinister nature of people's hearts. She also didn't notice the unfriendliness towards Miao Fan. She even had a good impression of Miao Fan because she ate a few meals of Miao Fan's food. It seemed that she had foolishly invited Miao Fan to visit her Mo palace when she had time. She would take her to see the exclusive devil's snare blood flower. This Miao Fan had lived for many years. Since she claimed to be Shun Juli's elder sister, she must be older than him. Naturally, little Xiuma couldn't compare with her scheming. Chapter 1928. Ning Xiuma rubbed the space between her brows. If she hadn't transmigrated over, according to the original setting, Shun Juli would have used a forbidden technique to cure her of the aphrodisiac or whatever poison. She would have lost half of her divine power, and he would definitely go into seclusion to recover. In that case, when he was in seclusion, there would only be this Miao Fan and Xiuma alone. If Shun Juli didn't leave the palace, no matter how much this Miao Fan disliked little Xiuma, she wouldn't do anything. However, once Shun Juli left the palace, Fantian Palace would become her territory. In that case, how would she deal with little Xiuma? Little Xiuma wouldn't care about verbal attacks. Even though she was reckless, she should know that she wouldn't have a good ending once she left Fantian Palace. According to the development of history 50,000 years ago, Shun Juli was severely injured in this battle. In that case, was little Xiuma chased out of the palace before or after he returned? The version that Mother Earth said that was circulating in the martial world was that Shun Juli had personally injured little Xiuma before throwing her out. Ning Xiuma didn't believe in this version. She felt that there should be more to it. This Miao Fan had a strong enmity towards little Xiuma. According to the development of history, Shun Juli was severely injured when he went out to spar with Luo Jiuchen. Could it be that after he returned, this Miao Fan would talk bad about little Xiuma in front of Shun Juli to sow discord, causing Shun Juli to vent all his anger on little Xiuma? No. Shun Juli wasn't such a person. He wasn't someone who would easily believe slanderous words. Otherwise, This Meow fan deliberately put on a show when Shun Julie returned, so that Shun Julie could see little Shuima's unreasonable and overbearing side, thus provoking him to be ruthless towards little Shuima. But it didn't seem right. Little Shuima had lost all her martial arts. What could she have done to anger Shun Julie? Although little Shuima was very naughty, in a situation where she had lost her power, she couldn't do anything too outrageous, even if she wanted to. Ning Shuima overturned all kinds of assumptions in the blink of an eye. She was having a headache from thinking about it. He decided not to think about it anymore and sat down to meditate to recover. Shun Julie had been out for 2 days and still hadn't returned. Ning Shuima's heart was in turmoil. Could it be that the trajectory of history could not be changed? Shun Julie was still injured? These 2 days, she had been living quite comfortably. Shun Julie had actually left her a very exquisite arrangement in his bedroom. Every time it was time to eat, a table of food would appear in his bedroom. The amount was neither too much nor too little, just enough for Ning Shuima to eat. Moreover, these dishes always looked like they had just been prepared. They were steaming hot, fresh, and delicious. This made Ning Shuima feel somewhat puzzled while she was eating heartily. She had already studied the table 4 or 5 times, but she still couldn't figure out where these dishes came from. As for washing the dishes, Ning Shuima kept her promise. She didn't wash them by the lake, but directly sent them to Meow Fan's room. She smiled and asked her to use the cleaning technique to clean them. Meow Fan was sometimes impatient. She would wave her sleeves and turn those bowls and plates into a pile of fragments. She just shrugged her shoulders and didn't take it seriously. It was just a pile of bowls and plates. If they were broken, then so be it. In any case, new plates would be sent to her. The reason why she wanted to clean the old ones was because she didn't want them to look too dirty. The next night, Ning Shuima sent another plate of bowls to her. This time, Meow Fan didn't know what was wrong with her. She was actually kind to her. Shuima, you're Shuima, right? Did I tell you the story of me and Julie? Do you want to hear it? Chapter 1929. Ning Shuima pulled a stool from the side and sat down. She held her chin with her hand and showed a look of interest. Please speak. Meow Fan was choked by her look, and only then did she open her mouth. She talked about a lot of things, including a bunch of random things. Ning Shuima gave her a brief summary. First, Shun Julie crawled out a lotus. When he first came out, he was thought to be a lotus demon because he looked cute and was adopted by the water lily deity. Meow Fan was the water lily deity's daughter. The two of them grew up together as childhood sweethearts. It could not be said that they grew up together because Shun Julie grew up too fast. He already looked like an adult in a year. Meow Fan grew up step by step. When Shun Julie grew up, she still looked like an 8 or 9-year-old child. At this time, Meow Fan's mother finally understood that Shun Julie was not a lotus demon, but a unique god. He had many miracles on him. The mother and daughter felt that they had found a treasure. Meow Fan's mother had the idea of not letting others take advantage of her. She had been secretly proposing marriage to Shun Julie, saying that he and Meow Fan were childhood sweethearts and that they were a match made in heaven. Second, according to Meow Fan, Shun Julie had already agreed, but they were not in a hurry to get married. They still cultivated separately. She came this time to discuss the wedding date with Shun Julie. At the end, Meow Fan looked at Ning Shuima generously. Although there is nothing between you and Julie, you have lived in his palace. If this spreads, it will affect your reputation. I can persuade Julie to take you as his concubine, but you have to wait until you grow up. You can't be so young. After she finished speaking, her eyes were fixed on Ning Shuima's face. She wanted to see her sad face. She did not expect Ning Shuima to listen to her excitedly. She laughed. So you're his childhood sweetheart, Andy. When he comes back, you can tell him about your plan. After saying that, she skipped away with the plate in her arms, causing Meow Fan to choke. After Ning Shuima returned to her room, she secretly analyzed the situation. This childhood sweetheart should be real. Even Meow Fan's mother wanted to use the favor of raising him to force him to marry Meow Fan should be true. But the so-called Shun Julie's promise was obviously nonsense. Ning Shuima had been in love with Shun Julie for 3 lifetimes. She had long known his temperament. If he wanted to marry someone, he would marry her immediately. He would not have so many scruples. Moreover, judging from Shun Julie's attitude towards Meow Fan, there was a faint sense of alienation. Even if Meow Fan deliberately tried to get close to him, it wouldn't work. How was it possible for him to fall in love with her? If Shun Julie did not love someone, he would not marry her. This Meow Fan could not be the same as Lu Xin, needing to have a marriage agreement with him to pass the lightning tribulation, right? Lu Xin was a waste, but this Meow Fan was not. According to Ning Shuima's pair of vicious eyes, this Meow Fan's power had at least reached heaven rank level 6. She could be considered as a genius. She should not have the same experience as Lu Xin. So, Meow Fan's last words were a lie. Shinjuli only treated her as his foster sister. It was even more impossible for him to discuss the wedding date with her. Ning Shuma slightly analyzed and understood the key point. She smiled to herself, trying to use such words to deceive her. No way, unless it was to deceive a child. Thinking of this, her heart suddenly moved. She naturally did not believe these words. But what about little Shuimo? Would she believe it? That year, this Meow Fan must have said similar words to little Shuimo. What would her reaction be? Chapter 1930. Meow Fan must have said similar things to little Shuima in the past. What would her reaction be? She had been entangled with him for 3 lifetimes before she completely understood his character and character. Little Shuima only blindly worshipped and liked him. She was afraid that she didn't understand this person. She didn't even understand what a real husband and wife should do. When Meow Fan's words fell into her ears, even if she didn't completely believe it, she was afraid that she would be skeptical. However, with her straightforward character, if she had doubts in her heart, she would immediately ask Shun Julie. Then wouldn't Meow Fan be exposed? On the 3rd day, Shun Julie still didn't come back. The news in Fantion Palace was blocked, and Ning Shuima couldn't go out. She began to feel a little anxious. Was Shun Julie still defeated? History didn't change? She was upset, so she ran to Shun Julie's study to look for books to read. She still had to refine the Heaven's Water Poison to restrain Luo Jiuqin, and Shun Julie's study had a lot of books about refining medicine. She often looked for books about this type of book to read in the study these days. She sat at the desk and was absorbed in reading. Suddenly, she smelled a strange smell. The smell was like something burned, but the smell was very light. There was also sandalwood in the room, so the burning smell was mixed with the sandalwood and it was very difficult to smell. When Ning Shuima noticed it, there was a fire in the corner of the bookcase in the study. It was on fire. She hurriedly patted it, but she didn't expect that the more she patted, the more the fire burned. If she still had her psychokinesis, she could naturally extinguish the fire with a fire-extinguishing spell, but she didn't have any psychokinesis now. She could only use the ordinary way to extinguish the fire, but she walked around the study and couldn't find a drop of water. Then she ran outside and wanted to dig some soil to extinguish the fire. But the ground in Fantion Palace was basically covered with green jade and small stones. It looked beautiful at ordinary times, but it was difficult to dig some soil. At this time, she didn't have time to think about anything else. She hurriedly picked up a large vase and ran towards the lake. Fortunately, the lake was not far from the study. Ning Shuima hurriedly drank a bottle of water. When she looked back, she paused for a moment. In just a short moment, the study room was already ablaze. The flame rose to a height of 30 feet, making a loud noise. It was definitely not something that a vase of water could extinguish. Pa! The vase in Ning Shuima's hand fell to the ground and smashed into pieces. The water inside spilled all over the floor. What should they do? When Ning Shuima and little Nianma were living together, they often visited Shun Julie's study room. Naturally, they were familiar with the layout of his study room and the collection of books in it. In the past few days, when she was reading in the study room, she found that there were many books that didn't exist even after 50,000 years. Many of them were treasures that should be collected. At that time, she was a little puzzled. Why didn't these books exist after 50,000 years? so it was burned. This was most likely Meow Fan's trick to set up little Shuama. Little Shuama was not very fond of reading. She even hated it a little. Shunjili knew this. If little Shuama was at home, Shunjili would definitely ask Meow Fan to supervise little Shuama to read when he went out. Meow Fan would make a fuss about it. When little Shuama was in the study room, she secretly hid something to set the bookshelf on fire. She burned Shunjili's books. When Shunjili returned, she would complain about it. That way, little Shuama would not be able to explain herself. She was most likely injured and kicked out of Fantion Palace because of this. Chapter 1931. Was what was supposed to happen finally happening? Was Shunjili that easy to fool? She looked at the raging flames and did not react. There was no one else in the Fantion Palace. The 8 mythological beasts were still in their petrified state and could not put out the fire. As for Meow Fan, she was probably hiding in the dark and would definitely not come out to save her. However, even if she knew it was useless, she still had to call for help. Otherwise, Meow Fan would have more to say. She was about to call for Meow Fan when the sky suddenly darkened and heavy rain fell from the sky. The heavy rain was very strange. It only poured down on the study room, but the sun was still shining in other places. Ning Shuama's heart skipped a beat. Did Shunjili come back? Or did Meow Fan think that the fire was almost done and it was time to put on a show? She ran toward the study room. She saw 2 people standing in front of the study room from afar. The girl in white and the man in white were casting spells to summon the water from the sky to extinguish the fire in the study room. Ning Shuama deeply felt that the speed and method of extinguishing the fire was more effective than a fireman's sprinkler. It covered all directions without any blind spots. The man in white was Shunjili. He seemed to have noticed something and turned his head toward Ning Shuama. The girl in white was naturally Meow Fan. She also looked at Ning Shuama. Shuama. Meow Fan immediately rushed over. Child, what happened to you? Weren't you reading in the study room? Where did you go just now? Julie thought that you were burned inside and rushed in to find you. She talked a lot and secretly hung a bucket of shit on top of Ning Shuama's head. At this time, the fire in the study room had been completely extinguished. Shunjili coldly glanced at Ning Shuama. His gaze was as cold as ice and snow. A timid person would be frightened by his gaze. I was reading in the study room. The easternmost bookshelf suddenly caught fire. I don't have any psychokinesis, so I could only get water to save it. Ning Shuama explained. That's strange. The light in the study is from a luminous pearl, not a candle. Why would it suddenly catch fire? It can't be. Shuama, I know you don't like to read, but the books in Julie's study are all rare and precious. Every book is the result of his hard work. You can't burn them even if you don't like to read them. You brat, I just want to sit down for a while, and you got yourself into such a mess. You even lied. Meow Fan finally put the blame on Shuama's head. Apparently, she had already thought of this speech long ago. There was not a single flaw in it. Ning Shuama's heart was already as bright as snow. She finally understood how little Shuama was framed that year. She had long known that Shunjili loved books. Back then, she had accidentally burned one of his books and was punished by him. Now, she had burned an entire library of books. Therefore, it was reasonable for Shunjili to punish little Nianma when he was furious. She secretly took a deep breath. At that time, little Shuama and Shunjili were not intimate. Shunjili also knew that little Shuama did not like to read. Therefore, he believed what Meow Fan said. But now, we believe her now? She looked at Shunjili and asked, Do you believe me? Shunjili was expressionless. His voice was still cold. The truth is right here. How do you expect me to believe you? There was nothing in the study room that could have caused the fire. The only possibility is that it was man-made, and you're the only one in the study room. Chapter 1932. However, this time it was indeed man-made. But who knows if someone deliberately framed me and put something that could easily ignite the fire in the corner of the study room in advance. At a certain time, it would automatically burn. I did go to the lake to get water to put out the fire. The vase is still there. You can go to the lake to take a look. Ning Shuima's words had a hidden meaning. Miao Fan's face slightly changed. Shuima, what do you mean by this? There are only you and me in this Fantian palace. You said someone framed you. Are you talking about me? Ning Shuima pursed her thin lips. Whoever did it knows clearly. Miao Fan chuckled and looked at Shun Jiuli. Jiuli, look at her. She has been caught red-handed by you, and yet she is still slandering you. She probably didn't know that half of these books were my collection. Usually, I would feel distressed if a corner was missing. Why would she want to set all these books on fire? Just to frame a child? This is too unreasonable. Shuima, besides, you and I don't have any enmity between us. How could I use this method to harm you? You child, alas, after all, you are a demon. You can't be raised properly. His words were so dignified that no one could find the slightest flaw in them. Ning Shuima glanced at Miao Fan. If this girl was in the palace, she would definitely be an expert in palace fights. I just don't like to write. It's not that I don't like to read. Even if you don't like to read, you could just not read. Why would you burn the study room? He has always loved books. You know that, so do I. Now that I have lost my power and am living under someone else's roof, am I looking for trouble by burning his study room? Do you think I am so stupid? Ning Shuima asked back. Although Miao Fan had taken the blame for this, whether she accepted it or not was another matter. As for what you said about having no grievances with me, that is just your excuse. You like him and want to take him away from me. Therefore, you set up this vicious plan to frame me. You are indeed a good person. Miao Fan did not expect Ning Shuima to be so eloquent. She stared blankly for a moment before she suddenly burst into laughter. She looked at Shun Jiuli and said, Jiuli, with our current relationship, do I still need to resort to such underhanded means to take you away from her? Oh, that's right. She doesn't seem to believe that you and I are already engaged. Why don't you tell her so that she won't deny her wrongdoings? Ning Shuima's heart skipped a beat. Was the engagement between her and Shun Jiuli real? She also looked at Shun Jiuli. Shun Jiuli's eyes were cold. Devil Master, Miao Fan and I are indeed engaged. Miao Fan is my fiancé. Ning Shuima's face turned pale, and she couldn't help but take a step back. Are Shun Jiuli and Miao Fan really engaged? It can't be. Then how could he still have sex with her so unscrupulously? He even said that he wanted to marry her? Miao Fan sighed at the side. Jiuli, I don't want your name to be damaged. Look at her pestering you time and time again. She is also infatuated with you. Originally, for the sake of both of your reputations, I wanted to wait for you to come back and persuade you to take her as your concubine. I didn't expect her to be so insatiable that she wanted to monopolize you. Now I understand why she burned the study room. She must have wanted to frame me. Fortunately, the heavens pitted her and you came back just in time. She was so desperate that she decided to bite back. Chapter 1934. What's more, she knew the plot in advance. As soon as she saw Shun Jiuli raise his sleeves slightly, she knew something was wrong and was on full alert. Before his palm reached her, she had already retreated 10 feet at a strange angle like flowing water, just avoiding Shun Jiuli's palm. However, she couldn't avoid the wind from his palm and was hit by it. He was really ruthless to her. If she couldn't avoid this palm, she would be seriously injured. Something's wrong. Ning Shuima suddenly raised her head and looked at Shun Jiuli's face. His appearance was right, his figure was right, and his voice was right, but his aura was wrong. Shun Jiuli had a very special cold fragrance on his body, but that cold fragrance was very faint. One could only smell it if they were very close to him. Moreover, when he attacked with his palm, the aura of the wind from his palm was the same as his own aura. However, the wind from his palm was different from the aura that Ning Shuima usually smelled. Of course, the difference was very small. If one didn't have a very sensitive sense of smell, they wouldn't be able to smell it. Of course, Julie had very few opportunities for people to get close to him. If Ning Shuima didn't have skin contact with him, she wouldn't be able to tell. When she raised her head, Julie's second palm was already coming over. This palm was more ruthless than the first palm, and the coverage area suddenly increased by several times. It was difficult for Ning Shuima to avoid it again. Bang! A sound rang out. Ning Shuima was finally hit, and she rolled away. Her chest felt stuffy. She struggled on the ground, but she couldn't get up. Instead, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Julie looked at her condescendingly. Seeing that I raised you, I won't take your life. From today onwards, get out of Fantion Palace. I don't want to see you again. Ning Shuima slowly stood up bit by bit. Her face was as white as snow. She looked at him with a gaze that contained disbelief, shock, anger, and hatred. Julie, I hate you. She spat out, I don't want to see you again. She seemed to be extremely angry and sad. Tears welled up in her big eyes, but she forced them back. She turned around and slowly walked out of the room. That lonely and desolate figure walked out of Fantion Palace step by step. Behind her back, Julie didn't urge her to stay. Of course, Miao Fan didn't either. The palace door slowly closed behind her. Ning Shuima stood at the entrance of the palace. She seemed to be in a daze. She hugged her arms and squatted down. Her entire body was trembling, as if she was suppressing something. After a while, she stood up and looked back at the gate of Fantion Palace. Her fingers were clenched tightly. Julie, I hate you. She couldn't help but cry out as tears slid down her cheeks. Even if you beg me in the future, I won't come back. After saying this, she turned around and left. This time, she didn't look back. She walked past a few corners and directly turned into a Bodhi forest before stopping. The branches and leaves in the Bodhi forest were swaying. She looked around and coughed. She took out a handkerchief and spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it, my tongue hurts so much. Pretending to vomit blood was also a skill. She had to bite the tip of her tongue and bite it deeper. Are you really injured? A voice suddenly came from behind her. Then, her waist was tightened and she fell into a warm embrace. Then, she flew up like she was riding a cloud and landed on a branch with dense leaves. Ning Shuima didn't have time to turn her head around before her wrist was grabbed by someone. 3 fingers were placed on her wrist. Chapter 1935. She obediently laid in his arms and let him check her pulse. After a while, his voice sounded again. Shuima, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Ning Shuima nodded and answered honestly, yes, my tongue hurts. Her body was turned around, and Ning Shuima finally came face to face with the person behind her. He was wearing a wide white robe that was as white as snow. His handsome face was like that of a celestial being. Ning Shuima couldn't be more familiar with this person. Julie, open your mouth. Julie was always so concise. Ning Shuima obediently opened her mouth and showed him the tip of her tongue. There was indeed a wound on the tip of her tongue. She had bitten it quite hard, and it was still bleeding. Julie's eyes darkened. He suddenly pressed her against him and covered her lips with his own. Her tongue was already injured like this, and he still wanted to kiss her. It would hurt even more if he kissed her. Ning Shuima subconsciously wanted to avoid him, but he had always been very strong. She did not have any skills now, so she could only passively let him kiss her. The tip of his tongue was cool. When it entered her mouth, he applied some medicine on the wound. It actually stopped the pain in an instant, and the wound healed very quickly. So he kissed her to apply medicine for her. Ning Shuima did not struggle anymore. She obediently stayed in his arms and let him kiss her. After the kiss, her tongue was almost healed. Julie slightly let go of her. There was a trace of displeasure in his eyes. Why did you bite so deeply? Ning Shuima pursed her lips. You secretly blocked his palm and told me to pretend to be seriously injured. Since I was seriously injured, how could I not spit out a few mouthfuls of blood? I could only bite the tip of my tongue. The tip of her tongue did not hurt anymore, and her spirit came back a lot. She hugged his arm, and her eyes were shining. How was it? Did I act like it just now? His gaze, actions, and tone, I noticed it all. Shun Julie looked at her complacent little face and made a four-word comment. Perfect. He was almost fooled by her. When he saw her spit out a few mouthfuls of blood, he thought that he hadn't blocked the attack well enough. In the end, he let someone hurt her. He looked at her in his arms. This little girl was simply too smart. Because everything happened too quickly, he didn't have the time to remind her. He only told her to pretend to be heavily injured and then leave. After blocking that palm strike for her, he didn't have the time to say anything else. From now on, she would have to improvise. He didn't expect this girl to have such a skill. Ning Xuema looked at him with a smile. Can you tell me your plan now? She had done the most important thing with him in bed, and, as expected, history had changed a little. Shun Julie wasn't injured this time, so he could come back in time to save her and beat them at their own game. The real history was that Shun Julie was heavily injured in that battle and hid somewhere to recuperate. Then Luo Jiuchen pretended to be Shun Julie and came back to act in front of Little Xuema. Little Xuema had never been intimate with Shun Julie, so she naturally believed it and left with serious injuries. Shun Julie's eyes flashed slightly, and he rubbed her head. Wait here obediently. I'll go and deal with those two people first. Ning Xuema pulled him back and quickly told him a few words. Just take advantage of the situation. Now Luo Jiuchen's trick can't be exposed directly. Believe me, this is very important. It will definitely be good for you and me. This show must go on. Chapter 1936. Shinjuli looked at her deeply and replied, Okay. He then turned around and disappeared from her sight. Ning Xuema leaned on the branch and let out a long sigh. She was so tired. It was so tiring to act in this show. She had to keep the show going so that history would not be changed too much. However, as long as she knew that Shun Julie did not betray her and still loved her, she was willing to do it even if it was very tiring. Shun Julie, in order to get you back, in order to let you be reborn, I have to give it my all. She rubbed her eyebrows. She could not tell Shun Julie the real direction of history. Otherwise, she would have to leave again, and she did not know when she could cross over again. If she could not cross over again, perhaps little Xuema would mess things up, or she would turn into a demon again and walk on the road of no return. She would still be cursed, and history would still not change. Shun Julie would still disappear, and Luo Jiuchen would still be the master of heaven and earth. Or she and Shun Julie would solve the misunderstanding, and from then on, Ning Xuema would have nothing to do with it. Not only would she not have the memory of Shui Mo and Ning Xuema, but little Nianma would also disappear. Both situations seemed to be very serious, so she might have to suffer a little. However, when she thought of little Xuema's suffering in the future, she could not help but feel cold. Her flesh and blood would be bitten by a group of demons, and she would have to endure the 10 great tortures of the Qing dynasty. She would have to be like a blind man who had his bile taken out. She would have to have a tube inserted in her heart to let someone take her blood. She was panicking just thinking about it. Sigh, if only she could skip the suffering and go straight to the part where she sealed Zisha. On top of the palace wall of Fantian Palace, Shun Julie stood there invisible, watching Ning Xuema's back gradually disappear into the distance. Suddenly, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, as if he was finally relieved. He jumped down from the palace wall and slowly walked back to the study of Fantian Palace. Miao Fan was still staring at the broken wall in a daze. Shun Julie patted her shoulder. What are you thinking? What's so interesting about a pile of bricks? Miao Fan finally regained her senses. She roused her spirit and asked, How is it? Shun Julie smiled. This time, his smile was a little enchanting. Very good. The plan was a success. Miao Fan smiled and said, Now that I have done what you asked me to do, what about him? What did you do to him? You promised me that you wouldn't really hurt him. Shun Julie smiled frivolously. I didn't take his life. I just seriously injured him. He is probably still recuperating in some corner of the mountain. He won't be back for a while. You said that you wouldn't seriously injure him. Miao Fan was angry. Her almond-shaped eyes widened. I only promised you that I wouldn't take his life. He is a god. He originally has an immortal body. It's not that you don't want his life, it's that you can't take it. Meow Fan exposed him. Shun Julie squinted his eyes and smiled. He sighed and said, Meow Fan, you really know how to be a woman. If I didn't injure him, how could I come back and put on this show with you to make her give up on him? He will definitely come back after he is seriously injured. At that time, you can serve him well. If necessary, you can use some tricks. I don't believe that he won't agree to your marriage. Meow Fan, when necessary, you have to be ruthless. You can't trap the wolf without sacrificing the child. Chapter 1937. Meow Fan pursed her lips tightly. Until now, I still don't understand what you want. As long as Julie doesn't die, or if he doesn't commit a grave mistake, you won't be able to take away the position of the Master God. Shun Julie smiled again, but this time it was a little evil. I have fought with him for so many years. I can only plot against him this time to vent my anger. Also, I like that little girl and want her to be my wife. Meow Fan's eyes widened. You like her, and you still plot against her? Shun Julie looked at her meaningfully. You don't understand. If I don't do this, how can that little girl give up on Shun Julie? She will fall into my arms. All right, Shun Julie should be back soon. You better seduce him as soon as possible. But he values this study the most. When he comes back and finds it burned, I'm afraid. I don't know how to explain it to him. Meow Fan was distressed. Shun Julie looked at her. Stupid. That girl ran away. Aren't you just going to push the blame to her? Say that she ran away to avoid punishment. What's more, he is so injured, the first thing he will do when he comes back is to go into seclusion. Oh, I have an idea to prevent him from asking about that girl when he comes back. Why don't you go to him now? Don't talk about the fire in the study. Just focus on serving him. It's better for him to go into seclusion on the spot with his injuries. At the end, he told her Shun Julie's address. Meow Fan's eyes lit up. Good idea. I will pack up and go. Shun Julie clapped his hands. All right, you settle Shun Julie yourself. I still have to go and see that girl. He turned and flew away. Meow Fan was happy and nervous at the same time. She turned and ran back, wanting to take enough things and go. Unexpectedly, after running a few steps, she suddenly stopped and looked at the white-robed man standing there. She was stunned for a moment and blinked her eyes. Why are you back? Is there anything else? The man's eyes were cold, and he didn't speak. Meow Fan was puzzled. What's wrong? Is there anything else you haven't explained clearly? Tell me. I'm in a hurry to find him. Where are we going to find him? The man finally spoke. Meow Fan frowned and said, We're going to the valley you mentioned just now. Didn't you say that you had severely injured him? I have to go take a look. The man said slowly, There's no need to go. You don't deserve to visit me. Meow Fan subconsciously said, I'm not visiting you. I'm visiting him. She finally realized that something was wrong, and her expression changed. You are. Julie. That man looked at her indifferently. His eyes were truly cold. Meow Fan, I didn't expect you to be so despicable. Meow Fan's face turned pale. She did not know how much Shun Julie had heard. She wanted to refute. Julie, you misunderstood. I heard it all. Shun Julie interrupted her and took a step forward. His voice was even colder. From the beginning to the end, Meow Fan. She took a few steps back. Julie, listen to me. She wanted to refute incoherently, but Shun Julie flicked his sleeve. After a while, Meow Fan fell to the ground. Her eyes were wide open in horror. She found that not only did her power disappear, her body suddenly shrunk. She couldn't help but raise her arm to look, and her expression changed greatly. Chapter 1938. Her white dress had turned into a red dress, which was exactly the same as the one Shuamo was wearing just now. She suddenly had a bad feeling. Julie, what are you doing? Shun Julie looked down at her, his eyes unfathomable. Meow Fan, you disappoint me. You shouldn't have schemed against her. Meow Fan's face turned pale. Julie, I just like you too much. Also, she is a witch after all. She really doesn't deserve you. I did it for your own good. Whether she deserves me or not is my business. It has nothing to do with you. Meow Fan, I don't have any feelings for you. I already told you before I met her. You also said that you wouldn't have any other thoughts, and even got engaged with a venerable from the celestial race. That's why I allowed you to enter the Pantheon Palace and respect you as my sister. You colluded with Luo Jiochin to scheme against me. Is this how you treat me? Miao Fan bit her lips. I got engaged because I don't want you to completely neglect me. I can't let go of you in my heart. Julie, Mother also hopes that we can become a couple. After all, we're childhood sweethearts and grew up together. Shun Julie looked at her indifferently. Childhood friends? Spending less than 10 days together. You're already childhood sweethearts? When he was born from the lotus, he was a little confused after he came out. He didn't know who he was or where he was going. He wandered by the water and accidentally saw little Miao Fan being bullied by a wolf spirit. So he saved her and sent her home. He was still a little kid at that time. Miao Fan's mother was grateful to him for saving her daughter, and seeing his rare handsomeness, she said that she was his mother and asked him to stay. At that time, he saw that everyone else had parents, but he didn't. Now, that Lotus Fairy popped out and said that she was his mother. He believed her. Originally, people who casually claimed to be relatives with gods would be punished by the heavens. So the next day, Lotus Fairy encountered a thunder tribulation and was almost struck to death. It was Shun Julie who rushed over to block the thunder tribulation for her and finally save her life. At the same time, he also understood his identity and the responsibility he had to bear. He stayed at the Water Lily Fairy's house for a total of 10 days. Of these 10 days, he spent 8 days in seclusion, meditating, and absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After coming out of seclusion, he left the Water Lily Fairy's home to roam the 6 realms. A year later, when he returned, he was already an elegant young man with the identity of a god. In the past few thousand years, he was grateful to the Water Lotus Fairy for raising him. So he took care of the Water Lotus Fairy and her family. He had helped Water Lotus Fairy withstand 4 lightning tribulations. Originally, Water Lotus Fairy was just a minor immortal. If not for his help, Water Lotus Fairy might not have survived the first lightning tribulation. As for Miao Fan, her aptitude was originally ordinary. It was Shun Julie who refined various divine medicines for her, allowing her to successfully ascend to the immortal realm. With her current status and identity, she became one of the most outstanding women in the immortal realm. She was pursued by various noble immortals and was even betrothed to a supremacy in the immortal realm. Shun Julie was born with incomparable handsomeness and was also a high and mighty god. There was not the slightest bit of mortal aura around him, so the number of women who wanted to pursue him was as numerous as carps crossing the river. But he was born with a cold aura, and the powerful aura around him made people want to bow down and worship him. Even if those women had thoughts, they were scared off by his appearance and did not dare to confess. It was as if they felt that if they did, it would be blasphemy to him. Chapter 1939. Even if there were some bold and beautiful women who tried their best to confess to him, they were all coldly rejected by him. Of course, there were even more bold ones who deliberately met him when he was wandering in the 6 realms. They even wanted to climb into his bed when he was sleeping at night. But before they could get close to him, he would throw them into a gloomy and ghostly place with a wave of his sleeve. They were so scared that they wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. They wandered in that place for a few days before they were released. From then on, they never dared to have any thoughts about him. And Miao Fan was very lucky. With his help, not only did she become one of the best in the immortal world, she could also enter and leave the Pantheon Palace at will. This made the sisters around her almost fall into a sea of jealousy, their eyes green with envy. Miao Fan was elated. She also liked her nominal brother. One day, she finally mustered up the courage to confess, but she was also mercilessly rejected by Shun Julie. He never saw her again, and she was no longer allowed to enter the Pantheon Palace. This made the Water Lotus Fairy and her family panic. They were originally counting on Shun Julie to support them. If they lost Shun Julie, this big tree, They would be beaten back to their original state and become a very ordinary little fairy in a pond in the lower realm. So the water lotus fairy immediately forced Meow Fan to apologize to Shun Jiuli, saying that it was just a joke and that she would never dare to think about it. In order to remove Shun Jiuli's wariness, Meow Fan also agreed to the marriage proposal of a venerable in the immortal world and held a quite grand engagement ceremony. Before the engagement, Meow Fan knelt in front of the Fanteon Palace for 3 days and stated her position. Finally, she obtained Shun Jiuli's forgiveness. He even showed his face at her engagement ceremony, giving her enough face. She could finally enter and leave the Fanteon Palace as an elder sister. The Water Lotus Fairy and her family had just adopted Shun Jiuli for a few days, and they were like chickens and dogs rising to heaven. It could be said that they had reaped great benefits. Shun Jiuli had been extremely benevolent to her family. He no longer owed her family anything. If they had to talk about what they owed, it would be her family that owed Shun Jiuli countless debts. Meow Fan had always wanted to get Shun Jiuli. She thought that no matter what she did, Shun Jiuli would not do anything to her for the sake of their friendship in the past. That was why she dared to do such a thing. Even if she was exposed by Shun Jiuli, she was not really afraid. She looked at Shun Jiuli and said, "Jiuli, I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me this time? I promise I won't do it again." Shun Jiuli looked at her. "Do you think there will be a next time? Then I won't dare to do it again, okay? I will still only be your elder sister." She pursed her lips and felt a little wronged. "If you're still not happy, I will apologize to you again. How about that?" Shun Jiuli's voice was cold. "Meow Fan, offending a god will be punished. What's more, you colluded with an outsider. Not only did you burn down my study, you also forced my wife away." Meow Fan's face changed. How could she be your wife? She's not worthy at all. Mother will not agree." Before she could finish her sentence, Shun Jiuli flicked his sleeve. Meow Fan could not make a sound. She looked at him with her eyes wide open. Shun Jiuli was shrouded in a cold aura. He slowly said, "No one has the right to interfere with my marriage, including your mother. Meow Fan, you schemed against Shuima. You have to swallow the bitter fruit you planted." Meow Fan's face changed. Chapter 1940. Meow Fan's expression changed, and she finally started to feel afraid. She actually wanted to ask what he would do to her, but her acupoints were sealed, so she couldn't say anything. She could only look at him with her eyes. How was he going to make her swallow the bitter fruit she had planted? Soon, she knew, Ning Shuima sat at the junction between the 36th level of heaven and the next level of heaven, and she sighed deeply. Speaking of which, little Shuima had lost all of her abilities back then. So how did she get sent to the devil realm? She couldn't go down at all right? She felt dizzy when she looked down, and she had no doubt that if she closed her eyes and jumped down, she would be smashed into smithereens even if she landed on the 35th level of heaven, much less the devil realm. Mother Earth's story was still omitted. She realized that even if she wanted to return to the devil realm, she couldn't under such circumstances. She sat there, and she was very worried. She was really worried. She knew that going down was a hell of no return, but she had to take this step. She also knew from Mother Earth that the main story of history couldn't be changed, which also meant that the calamity would still come. Billions of lives in this world were going to die in this calamity, and she was the source and culprit of this calamity. Ning Shuima actually had her own bottom line when doing things. If they didn't offend her or scheme against her, she was still very kind to others. Now that she had to go against her conscience to create such a calamity, it was still very stressful. Especially in order to create this calamity, she had to suffer a standard living punishment, and that was even more stressful. She sat there with her back viewed desolate, as if she was sad. Luo Jiochin looked at her from afar, his gaze deep and unfathomable. Then, he slowly walked towards her. His footsteps were as if he was floating, making no sound. Ning Shuima, who was sitting there, did not notice him at all. Luo Jiochin came behind her, and with a wave of his hand, Ning Shuima's body swayed, and she fell down. Luo Jiochin caught her and carried her in his arms. He looked at her little face and sighed faintly. "Shuima, I'm sorry. for my great cause. I can only sacrifice you temporarily. I will marry you in the future to compensate you." He carried her and flew down. When Ning Xiuma woke up again, she was in the middle of a wilderness. The sky was always filled with dark clouds, pitch-black rocks, turbid and turbulent rivers, and all kinds of bones could be seen everywhere. Very good. She had finally returned to the devil realm. In the distance, 7 or 8 people were running straight towards her direction. Black fog billowed around them, carrying an indescribable, baleful aura. Ning Xiuma shivered. What was supposed to come had finally come. To paraphrase a sentence from a certain movie, the gears of fate began to turn, and the wheels of history rolled towards her along the original trajectory. Even if she wanted to regret it now, it was too late. "It's here. Over here." Some people shouted, while others cheered. Ning Xiuma sat up. She had already recognized the 2 people running at the front. They were Xiuma's 2 capable subordinates. Demon Master. The 2 of them were the first to arrive in front of her. They stopped about 3 meters away from her. Their eyes shone with an unfathomable light. "Devil Master, you're finally back. Are you all right? Your subordinates have been very worried about you." Ning Xiuma straightened her body. Now that things had come to this, she was still a little nervous. She wanted to endure the pain for a little longer. She opened her mouth to speak, but when she opened it, she couldn't make a single sound. Damn it! That bastard Luo Jiochin had hit her acupoints. Could it be that she couldn't even make a sound when she was suffering? Chapter 1941. When the 2 people saw her, they looked at each other and took a few steps closer. "Devil Master, how are you?" They looked extremely loyal and concerned, but their eyes were slightly erratic, and there was a hint of greed in their eyes. Ning Xiuma was an expert at observing people's expressions. Just by looking at their expressions, she was able to see through their intentions. They were probably here to get the first piece of the pie. When little Xiuma was powerful, these 2 people followed her around and showed their loyalty to her almost all the time. They were also good at guessing little Xiuma's thoughts. No matter what they said or did, they could always get what little Xiuma wanted. Little Xiuma usually trusted these 2 people very much. She didn't expect them to be the first to hit her when she was down. The 2 devils could be said to be people who knew how to take advantage of the situation. When they saw Ning Xiuma's appearance, they knew that the rumors were true. The Devil Master had really become a cripple. "Devil Master, let's help you up." They looked at each other again, and suddenly, lightning flashed from the left and right. They had yet to reach Ning Xiuma when a gust of wind suddenly blew from the ground. This gust of wind was unusually fierce, and it blew all the dust on the ground up. The sky turned dark, and in an instant, they couldn't see anyone on the other side. The 2 people were stunned and stopped. Their eyes were confused by the wind and sand, and they couldn't open them for a moment. Fortunately, this gust of wind was only a small one. After a moment, the gust of wind disappeared, and the sky became clear again. The 2 people looked at the opposite side again. Their little Devil Master was still sitting there, and her eyes were full of panic. Not to mention the devil world. Even in any world, it was normal for a gust of wind to appear on the ground, so the 2 people didn't take it to heart. When they saw the little Devil Master sitting there in a sorry state, their evil intentions rose again, and they laughed sinisterly. "Devil Master, why are you sitting on the ground? Come, let us serve you well." They reached out and pulled her up. They said to help her up, but their actions were not gentle at all. It could only be described with 4 words: simple and crude. Both of his hands touched Ning Xiuma's pulse at the same time. A moment later, he suddenly burst into laughter. "Little Devil Master, you also have a day like this." Ning Xiuma's eyes were wide and round. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. The 2 devils pinched her cheeks. "Little Devil Master, you're not going to scold us for being bold again, are you? Ha! We won't do anything to you. At most, we'll eat you." One of the devils laughed in a particularly wretched manner. "We're not eating your flesh and blood, but..." He reached out and touched Ning Xiuma's chest. "You're a little chubby now." Then, he pinched her little hand. Your skin is so fair and tender. Just looking at it makes me excited. Don't worry, your brothers will take good care of you. Haven't you always wanted to get married? We brothers will teach you what to do when you get married and let you have a good taste of being a man. Once these two devils had no scruples and revealed their true colors, they would casually spout vulgar words that were unbearable to the ears. Ning Xiuma just widened her eyes and couldn't say a word. Her little face was green and white, and it was unknown whether it was because she was scared or angry. The two devils looked at the other black shadows running over from afar and frowned. It seemed that many people had received this news. There were too many monks and too little porridge. Such a small person wouldn't be enough to share. The two people looked at each other again, and then said one word, "Go." Then, one of them threw Ning Xiuma behind him like a broken sack. Chapter 1942. One of them threw Ning Xiuma on his back as if he was throwing a sack. His figure flashed as he fled into the distance, wanting to find a secluded corner to eat. Oh no! Someone beat us to it. Chase them! Chase them! Those who arrived later immediately realized that something was wrong. Smoke billowed as they chased after the two brothers. In the blink of an eye, they were far away. The sound of fighting could be heard in the distance, but the place returned to its former silence. A moment later, a voice suddenly came from a nearby tree. Is this what you meant by taking advantage of the situation? Being taken advantage of by these scumbags? The voice was cold and indifferent, even with a hint of coldness. It was Shun Julie's. Cough, cough, that. I didn't expect them to be so impatient. Another female voice sounded a little lacking in confidence. It was Ning Xiuma's voice. Didn't expect? What else did you think, but didn't want to say? Shun Julie's voice was even fainter. Haha, I thought you would save me, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Ning Xiuma hugged one of his arms and shook it fawningly. She sincerely praised. Guru, you are simply the reincarnation of Songjiang, a timely rain. Just now, when the two demons were running toward her, she thought that since she was going to throw caution to the wind today, she might as well let them bite her twice. Thus, she closed her eyes in resignation. She knew that Luo Jiuchen should be watching in the dark. At most, she would lose a few pieces of flesh. She would grit her teeth and bear with it. But she didn't expect a gust of wind to blow. Before she could react, her body was thrown into an embrace, flying up and landing on the tree. She almost sneezed because of the yellow sand blown by the wind. Fortunately, she held it back. She knew who saved her. The warm embrace behind her and the faint cold fragrance couldn't be anyone else. What she was more concerned about was whether Luo Jiuchen would guess that Shun Julie was the culprit behind her sudden abduction. Would there be any new trouble? After the gust of wind passed, she subconsciously looked down and then opened her mouth in surprise. There was another her on the place where she was sitting below. Her appearance and figure were exactly the same. Even if they were twins, it was impossible for them to look so identical. She watched helplessly as the two devils groped the body double from left to right, taking full advantage of her. A thick layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. She only knew that little Xiuma had not lost her virginity, but she did not expect that she would be molested by these people. Fortunately, it was just a substitute. If it was her, that would be terrible. Just by looking at them, she had the anger of chopping off the hands of those two devils. If she had tasted this feeling herself, she would probably have the heart to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. After those people left, Shun Julie opened her acupoint with a palm and talked to her. Shun Julie's expression was not good, and his eyes were not particularly friendly. Xiuma, you owe me an explanation. Ning Xiuma looked up at him. If she could explain, she would have done so long ago. She also felt uncomfortable holding him like this. Okay. She reached out her small hand and put it in his palm. Then she interlocked their fingers and looked at him sincerely. Almighty, do you believe me? Shun Julie looked into her eyes and sighed after a long time. I believe you. He knew that she had her difficulties, so he didn't press her. He held her in his arms and closed his eyes slightly. Don't bear some things alone. I'll be behind you. Chapter 1943. Just these two short sentences made Ning Shuima's heart suddenly feel warm. Yes, with him behind her back. What was there to be afraid of? She pressed her small face against his chest and listened to his steady and powerful heartbeat. She felt very satisfied. She and he had loved each other for 3 lifetimes, but they were rarely together, and he rarely said anything romantic. She didn't expect him to say these words today. These words were more pleasant than any words of love. It warmed her heart, as if it was soaked in warm water. She cupped her eyes and looked into the distance. There were faint sounds of fighting. It was obvious that the demons were fighting fiercely to get a share of the demon master's meat soup. Julie, did you make that substitute? It really looks like me. It's like a clone of me, exactly the same. I didn't expect you to have this ability. However, is the body double you made realistic? Would they be able to bite out its true form with just one bite? By the way, what material did you use to make the substitute? Ning Shuima asked a series of questions. Shunjuli also looked in that direction, his eyes unfathomable. He raised his hand and rubbed Ning Shuima's head. Don't worry, it's absolutely real. That Luo Jiochin must have been watching in the dark. You were actually able to play this kind of game right under his nose. Amazing. Ning Shuima was impressed. Shunjuli's voice was faint. I saw him, but he couldn't see me. In other words, Luo Jiochin couldn't see that he had switched. By the way, Julie, you've already won this battle. Why did you pretend to lose? This was the most strange thing about Ning Shuima. She almost suspected that Shunjuli had also transmigrated and came to correct history. Shunjuli looked down at her and said calmly, I want to see what this Luo Jiochin is up to. In fact, he didn't know what was going on. Before he went to the appointment, he had a vague feeling that Luo Jiochin was setting a trap for him. Especially during the fight, Luo Jiochin looked as if he was determined to win. Shunjuli felt that his smile was an eyesore. He suddenly felt a little curious about what Luo Jiochin would do after defeating him, so he deliberately lost. Of course, both sides were masters. His defeat was very skillful, so Luo Jiochin couldn't tell that he did it on purpose. He pretended to be chased by Luo Jiochin into a valley. After Luo Jiochin left, he quietly followed behind to see what new tricks he was up to. As a result, he saw Luo Jiochin to punish Ning Shuima as a demigod. Luo Jiochin usually did things in a proper manner. Even if he wasn't like a god, he was like an unrestrained immortal who wandered the 6 realms. From time to time, he would do good deeds and let people worship his longevity tablet. Even though he had to compete with Shunjuli every few decades, he did not resort to any underhanded means. Every time he lost, he would smile and say, let's compete again next time. Then, he would walk away with a wave of his sleeves. He was so carefree that he did not even take a cloud with him. But this time, Luo Jiochin first schemed against Shuima and poisoned her with the aphrodisiac. If it weren't for Shuima suddenly growing up and changing her personality and having sex with Shunjuli, he was afraid that he would have to use the forbidden technique to detoxify her. At that time, he would have to use half of his divine power, and the competition with Luo Jiochin had been agreed long ago, so it couldn't be changed. Chapter 1944. At first, Luo Jiochin might have been hiding his strength. In this competition, his moves were more ruthless and insidious than the previous one. The power of each move was twice as strong as usual. Shunjuli knew that if he really lost half of his divine power, he would be seriously injured this time. He faintly felt that Luo Jiochin should have other schemes. Since it was a scheme, he had to dig it out fully and then uproot it. Although Shunjuli was not a special police officer, he had the brain of a special police officer. He simply beat Luo Jiochin at his own game and lured the snake out of its hole. He wanted to see what Luo Jiochin's specific scheme was. What Shunjuli didn't expect was that Luo Jiochin's target was actually little Shuima. If he hadn't taken action in time and blocked that palm for Shuima, Shuima would have been seriously injured. Even if the God of Heaven was not merciful, he should be impartial in the affairs of the 6 realms and have a righteous heart. Even a demigod should be like this. Ordinary immortals and demons would not cause the six realms to suffer the consequences of evil. But if the god's heart was not righteous, it was easy for him to do things that angered the heavens and people, and then it would be out of control. Even a demigod couldn't do it. So Shan-Juli watched quietly this time to see how far he could go. The key to Luo Jochin's scheme this time was little Shuima. He seemed to be playing a big game with little Shuima. Shan-Juli, the god, was born to be emotionless. He didn't care about anyone or anything, but little Shuima was his weakness. He couldn't let go of her, especially after they had an intimate relationship. He couldn't let go of her even more. It was not a good thing for a god to have a weakness. It was easy to be used as a threat. So Shan-Juli was relatively cold to little Shuima at first. He treated her no differently from the other little spiritual beasts that he had adopted for a few days. Until the day she was poisoned by the aphrodisiac, he could no longer ignore her. After having intimate contact with her, he also understood his own heart. Naturally, he wanted to completely protect her under his wings and not let her suffer the slightest bit of harm. Of course, this time, even though little Shuima didn't say anything, the things she did were very strange, causing him to be puzzled no matter how much he pondered. Although he didn't understand, he still believed in her. Therefore, he made up his mind to stay by her side and save her when she was in danger. He looked into Ning Shuima's eyes. She seemed to want to say something, but hesitated. In the end, she turned her eyes away from him. She started to change the topic. "Oh, right, Julie, what did you do with your sister? Is she still staying in your Fantion palace?" Shan-Juli glanced at the battle in the distance and replied, "She got the punishment she deserved." Shan-Juli had always been fair and just. Since Miao Fan had schemed against little Shuima, then little Shuima had to bear the consequences of it, no matter whether it was good or bad, since the substitute had suffered for her. Ning Shuima also breathed a sigh of relief. She pulled Shan-Juli's sleeve and asked, "Should we follow them and have a look?" Shan-Juli looked down at her and asked, "Do you want to go?" Ning Shuima rubbed her nose. She actually just wanted to follow them and see if the substitute had been exposed. However, if Shan-Juli kept following them and saw that the substitute was bitten all over and suffered from the 10 great tortures of the Qing dynasty, she didn't know if he couldn't help but directly kill these demons and save the substitute. Chapter 1945. If that was the case, there might be a change in the plan. Just as she was hesitating, Shan-Juli carried her and flew up. "Since you want to see, I'll bring you there." Ning Shuima. Actually, it was him who wanted to see too, right? What Ning Shuima didn't expect was that in just an hour, the situation had escalated to a white-hot state. Countless corpses of the devil race were strewn all over the ground, including the 2 devils who wanted to take the substitute for themselves. They didn't get any benefits and had instead paid with their lives. It was just like the saying, humans die for wealth and birds die for food. The Devil Master's meat was indeed Tang Seng's meat, but it also depended on whether you had the ability to eat it. Now, this substitute was being carried horizontally in the arms of a tall and burly devil. Fresh blood flowed down her red dress, and her little face was forcefully buried in the devil's arms. That was why Ning Shuima couldn't see her expression, but he could see that her body was trembling like a leaf in the wind. There were 7 to 8 other devils surrounding this devil who was carrying the substitute. Flashes of knives and shadows of swords, fresh blood, and cries of agony splattered all over this wasteland. Even though that devil was strong, he couldn't do it alone. Even a good tiger couldn't fight against a pack of wolves. Soon, he was showing signs of defeat under the attacks of those 7 to 8 devils. In a moment of carelessness, his shoulder even suffered a stab, and he almost threw the girl in his arms away. He probably knew that he couldn't salvage the situation, but he wasn't willing to give away the fat meat in his mouth, just like that. He actually took advantage of the fight to take a big bite out of the arm of the girl in his arms, tearing off a piece of flesh. The girl in his arms gave off a grunt like a wild beast that had its mouth tied. Her body instantly stiffened, and it was obvious that she was in extreme pain, yet she couldn't cry out. This scene was abnormally bloody, and even Ning Xiuama, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, broke out in cold sweat. If it wasn't for Shun Julie saving her, she would be the one suffering all of this now. Even though he knew from Mother Earth that little Xiuama would face this calamity back then, seeing it with his own eyes was still very impactful. Little Xiuama had never suffered like this before, but because of her love for Shun Julie, she had to suffer such inhumane torture. It was no wonder that once she regained her freedom, she would immediately turn into a demon and crazily seek revenge. Shun Julie's expression was also extremely ugly. If he really lost this battle with Luo Jiuchen and couldn't come back in time, then his Xiuama would really have to endure such torture. Thinking of this, he even felt a little scared and hugged the person in his arms even tighter. Ning Xiuama murmured, "Julie, the dummy you made looks like a real one. It can bleed and tremble. It doesn't look fake at all." She then looked at the devil that was biting the substitute. After he took a bite and swallowed it, he threw the girl in his arms toward a rather powerful devil that was attacking him. That devil naturally caught her in passing, and thus, the other devils that were on the same side as him all turned their spears towards him. There was another bloody battle and another round of snatching. More and more devils came to fight over the spoils. The time that the substitute stayed beside the devils became shorter and shorter. Her flesh was being torn apart by the unwilling devils, and she was already covered in blood. Ning Xiuama felt the same way. Her eyes were almost red, and she asked Shun Julie in a low voice, "Is that scoundrel Luo Jiuchen still watching nearby?" Shun Julie took a look at a huge tree not far away, and his voice was cold. "He's hiding there. He doesn't have the intention to make a move." Chapter 1946. The scene was too bloody. Even the substitute's little hand had been bitten off, and the palm had been reduced to an incomplete white bone. This was simply a punishment of death by 1,000 cuts. Ning Xiuama's face turned pale as she watched. Her fingers clenched tightly in her sleeves. Looking at her substitute being bitten like this, she felt as if she had experienced it herself. She didn't dare to imagine what it would be like to be bitten like this. What kind of mentality did little Xiuama have when she was tormented like this? There was a feeling of wanting to kill, wanting to destroy the world. Suddenly, her eyes darkened. Shun Julie covered her eyes with his sleeve. "Be good, don't look." A long howl came from a distance. The howl shook the surroundings and was quickly approaching. It was obvious that a super big demon had arrived. The other demons who were fighting over the substitute heard the howl and were startled. Their faces changed, and they immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Only the demon who was still holding on to Ning Xiuama was left. He didn't know if he should throw away the treasure in his hands or run away with it. After a moment of hesitation, he also fiercely tore off a piece of flesh from Ning Xiuama. Then, he threw her aside and ran away. The substitute's vitality was not ordinary. Even at this point, she still didn't faint. She trembled with all her might and made strange sounds like a beast crying out miserably. That super big demon had finally arrived. He looked at the little person who was trembling on the ground, and his eyes emitted a red light. Ning Xiuama recognized that this super big demon was the strongest person besides little Xiuama. The flower that made little Xiuama unable to grow was also stolen from this demon. His name was Zhu Huan. At that time, after little Xiuama defeated Zhu Huan and stole the flower, she didn't care about Zhu Huan's life and even let him live. When little Xiuama was the demon master of the demon world, this person didn't appear again. He must have gone somewhere to recuperate. Now that he had heard the news about little Xiuama, he naturally came to share a piece of the cake. Zhu Huan's devil power was extremely high, second only to little Xiuama in her heyday. He was also a figure who could do whatever he wanted in the devil world. Other devils were naturally afraid of him. When they saw him, they naturally scattered like birds and beasts. Little devil master, to think that you would have such a day. Zhu Huan picked up the bloody substitute like he was picking up a chick. He used his sleeve to wipe off the blood on her small face. Not bad. Although the substitute had been bitten to the point where there was not a single piece of flesh left intact, her small face was not injured. It was just that it was deathly pale. The substitute hadn't fainted yet. His small mouth opened and closed as if he desperately wanted to say something, but he couldn't. Zhu Huan laughed heartily. "Little devil master, why do I feel so happy to see you like this?" He suddenly grabbed the substitute's head and kissed her forcefully. The substitute probably wanted to struggle, but she had no strength left. Instead of kissing, it was more like biting. He bit the substitute's lips until they were dripping with blood. Only then did he let go of her in satisfaction. "Little devil master, actually, I like you a little. Unfortunately, you only have that supreme divinity in your heart. You even desperately tried to stick to him and change your mind to ask for his hand in marriage. Do you know that you've completely disgraced the devil race? Now, you've been driven out, haven't you? You've been driven out by your lover, haven't you? You're as pathetic as a drowning dog. You still want to count on your lover to save you? Stop dreaming. He's already driven you out." Chapter 1947. The moment he kicked you out and threw you back to the demon realm. He should have known what would happen to you. He hates you and wants you dead. Ha ha. Do you know how he got the news of your misfortune? It was that supreme divinity who spread the news. The body double trembled in Zhu Huan's hands and made noises. Zhu Huan laughed. "Someone sealed your acupoints? Haha, I'll be kind and undo it for you. I like to hear you scream." He patted her body. After a long while, the body double still made noises and couldn't make any meaningful sound. What a pity. It seems that you're so frightened that you're speechless. Zhu Huan gently stroked her little face with his fingers. "It doesn't matter. As long as you can make a sound, I'll take good care of you." He took out a medicine bag from nowhere and sprinkled some powder on the body double's countless wounds. The body double trembled even more violently as her body contorted with all her might. It was clear that the powder had the effect of stimulating the wounds on her body, causing her to feel even more pain. "Be good. I'm not harming you. I just want your wounds to heal. I don't have any appetite for such a bloody scene. Let's go. I'll take you home. TSK. I can't bear to see such a little beauty being hurt like this." Zhu Huan proudly carried the body double and ran away, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Shen Juli's hands and feet turned cold as he watched from the tree. He had already vaguely guessed what kind of trap Luo Jiuchen had set for him. That bastard was clearly trying to force the little demon master to become a real, crazy demon. Fortunately, he had secretly replaced the body double. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. He looked up at another tree. Luo Jiuchen was standing there with his eyes downcast and his fingers clenched tightly as if he couldn't bear it. Moments later, Luo Jiuchen let out a long sigh. "Imo, don't blame me for being cruel. I had no choice. I'll make it up to you in the future. I'll give you the best." He turned around and ran off. Shen Juli's body moved. He wanted to follow, but a pair of small hands suddenly clung onto his neck. "Julie, I feel uncomfortable." Shen Juli looked down and was shocked. The face of the person in his arms was extremely pale. Even her lips were white. "Shuema." Shen Jili put his fingers on her wrist. "What's wrong with you?" Ning Shuema's small body was trembling. "I feel terrible, so terrible." Her heart was beating abnormally fast. It was like fear, but also like poisoning. She pursed her lips and looked like she was about to cry. My heart hurts. I want to go back to Fantion Palace." Shen Jili looked down at her deeply and said softly, "Okay, I'll take you back." In any case, he had already swapped her out. That Miao Fan had gone through all the pain and suffering in Shuema's place. Even if she was driven crazy, she wouldn't be able to do anything. There was no need for him to follow them anymore. Ning Shuema felt like vomiting. She had seen a lot of bloody scenes in her life, so normal bloody scenes were nothing to her. However, when she saw what the body double had gone through, her heart was trembling, because she knew that this was what little Shuema had really gone through. How helpless was she when she went through all this back then? How desperate? Chapter 1948. Just because she loved someone, she was treated like this. Not to mention the innocent little Shuima back then. Even if she was now, if she didn't know the truth in advance, she would also go crazy. It was necessary to become a demon immediately. Although the substitute was fake, the behavior of these demons was real. Right now, Ning Shuima had the urge to cut these devils into 1,000 pieces. Of course, she hated the initiator, Luo Jiuchen, to the bone. In order to achieve his own selfish desires, this person actually harmed a girl like this. And this girl was even the one he said he loved. Pervert. Demon. This person was not a demigod. He was clearly the reincarnation of a demon. If she didn't kill this thief, she would not be a human. Seeing Zhu Huan kissing the substitute, Ning Shuima had an impulse to vomit. It was too disgusting. If Shun Julie hadn't replaced her, she would have been the one suffering all this now. It turned out that little Shuima's condition wasn't as simple as being bitten a few times or having her heart's blood extracted. Aside from the physical pain, her spirit was also ravaged. It was only natural that she would collapse and her temperament would change greatly. Ning Shuima understood what would happen next. With Shun Julie's personality, he would definitely not allow things to continue to develop. If he didn't allow things to continue to develop, then Zisha wouldn't appear, and she wouldn't have to change her fate in the end, so she couldn't let him continue to watch. To sum up, Ning Shuima simply swallowed a unique poison quietly. In addition, she was already disgusted, so it seemed that she was really weak. Shun Julie took her back to Fantion Palace and immediately treated her. He found out the poison in her body. Fortunately, it was a slow-acting poison, and he cured it in time, so it was not a big problem. Julie, I want to recover my kung fu. In Shun Julie's bedroom, Ning Shuima held Shun Julie's arm and didn't let go. This feeling of not having any kung fu and being at the mercy of others was too unpleasant. She had to get better quickly so that she could carry out the next step of her plan. Shun Julie understood that she was frightened by the scene and held her in his arms. Don't worry. I will protect you in the future. I will never let you suffer again. Ning Shuima shook her head. I think it's better for me to recover my kung fu on my own. She looked at Shun Julie anxiously. It can't be that my kung fu is completely crippled, right? Never to recover again? No, it's because you went too far in the early stages that your blood vessels were completely blocked. I'll help you slowly recuperate. After a year, your martial arts will return. 1 year. Ning Shuima's jaw almost dropped. That's too long. If she stayed here for too long, she was afraid that her body would die, and little Nianma would cry himself to death. Moreover, Mother Earth said that after little Shuima was rescued by Luo Jiuchen, she recovered all her kung fu in less than half a month. Her kung fu even doubled a few times. That was why she could destroy the world. Could it be that Luo Jiuchen had a very special way to recover? Is there a faster way? I can't wait. Ning Shuima continued to look at him eagerly. Shun Julie was speechless. He tried to persuade her. Shuima, 1 year is not a long time. It's better to recover your kung fu gradually. In the eyes of the immortals, 1 year was indeed a short time. However, to Ning Shuima, it was impossible. She continued to pester Shun Julie, hoping that he would find a faster and better way. She was determined and kissed him on the lips. Julie, help me. Chapter 1949. Her chi deviation this time was definitely related to Shun Julie. Shun Julie already felt guilty towards her, but he couldn't change her insistence. He sighed and said, There is a way, but it will make you suffer a lot. There's really no need. There's a need. It's really necessary. Ning Shuima's eyes lit up when she heard him relenting. She hurriedly said, I'm not afraid of suffering. I have to recover quickly. Shun Julie looked at her for a long time. His gaze was so deep that Ning Shuima's little heart couldn't help but beat faster. Okay. Shun Julie only said one word. Ning Shuima let out a sigh of relief and struck while the iron was hot. When do we start? 10 days later, Shun Julie said concisely. Ning Shuima lowered her eyes and calculated the time. According to Mother Earth, little Xiaoma suffered for 10 days in the hands of that Zhu Huan before she was rescued by Luo Jiuqin. Can it be a few days earlier? I think we can do it now. Ning Xiaoma tried to bargain with him. Your poison has just been cured, and your body is still weak. You have to recuperate for 10 days. Shen Juli rejected her flatly. All right, 10 days it is. It shouldn't be a problem. All right, have a good rest. I'll come and see you later. Shen Juli stuffed her into the blankets and turned to leave. Ning Xiaoma faintly felt that Shen Juli should be suspicious of her. This person was extremely smart, and some of her little tricks would probably fall into his eyes. For example, she ate poison herself, and she was so anxious to recover her power. Shen Juli just didn't want to expose her, but it would probably leave a shadow in his heart. But how could she be honest with him? If she was honest, she would probably transmigrate back before she could even say half of it. It wasn't easy for her to transmigrate again. Speaking of which, did she change her fate chart? If it was just a substitute suffering, then the substitute couldn't produce the purple fiend, right? Without Zisha, the world would not have perished. Then, Shen Jili would have been able to live here for a long time. Little Xiaoma would not have died, and Shuemo and Ning Xiaoma would not have been born. Little Nianma would not have been born either. Ning Xiaoma lay in bed and felt that she was going to be confused by this unsolvable equation. But how did the purple fiend come about? After he recovered his kung fu, should he be like little Xiaoma and go on a killing spree? Those demons in the devil realm who had once tortured her substitute must be killed. She had no qualms about killing them. But what about the others? After all, the others were innocent. Was she really going to drag the people of the 6 realms down with her for her own selfish desires? After all, Shen Juli was the guardian of the heavenly Tao. If he suddenly went down to the lower bound and became a demon, he was afraid that Shen Juli would not agree to it. She still had to be his enemy. Ouch. Her head hurt. Ning Xiaoma held her head and rolled around on the bed. Although she admitted that she was not a good person, it was still very stressful to be the Devil King who destroyed the world. Especially when her husband was the guardian of the heavenly Tao. The pressure was magnified countless times. When she was in the devil realm, in order to achieve a realistic effect, she took a very strong poison. Although it was cured now, her head was still a little dizzy and painful. Besides, she was also very tired after a day of torment. Unknowingly, she fell asleep. Shen Juli had returned to the bedroom. He sat in front of Ning Xiaoma's bed. Seeing that she was sleeping soundly, he did not disturb her. He just checked her pulse again. Ning Xiaoma suddenly moved and murmured unconsciously, "Nianma, what should I do? Mother." Chapter 1950. She muttered a few more words, but the rest was very vague, and he couldn't hear clearly. Shen Juli's fingers that were holding her wrist stiffened. He looked down at her and didn't move for a long time. After a while, he raised his hand and smoothed the messy hair on her forehead. He seemed to want to do something, but in the end, he didn't do it. He sat by her bed and then turned to walk out. Yes, he had already seen that she had swallowed the poison to stop him from following her. Some of her actions were also very abnormal. He had asked her to wait for him on the tree, but she sat alone at the edge of the road to the mortal world. She clearly knew that Luo Jiuqin would plot against her. When she fell into the demon world, she seemed to have known that those demons would take advantage of the situation to catch her. She bravely accepted her fate. Although he didn't like to meddle in other people's business, it didn't mean that he didn't understand the human nature of this world. He knew some of the movements of the demon world like the back of his hand. He was very familiar with most of the demons with names and had a general understanding of the demons under Xiaoma's command. He knew that these people were not loyal to Xiaoma, but because her demon power was too high, they didn't dare to rebel. Most of the demons were not loyal to her. He had previously reminded her, but after all, she didn't understand, and her ability to control her subordinates was not very strong. Once she lost her power and became an ordinary person, Shen Juli knew what it meant to those demons better than little Xiaoma. If it was the little Xiaoma who had not grown up, she might not have been able to predict the situation and made such a suicidal move. But now Xiuema was very smart and tactful. For someone like her to do such a thing, it really made people suspicious. Ning Xiuema once asked him if he believed her, and he believed her. He didn't know what was going on, but he inexplicably believed her. He believed that everything she did was for a reason and had difficulties. But he still hoped that she could be honest with him, and then the two of them could face it together. He didn't want to guess here and there when he knew that something was wrong. And he still misjudged Luo Jiuchen. He thought that Luo Jiuchen would rush out to save Xiuema at the critical moment, but he didn't expect that Luo Jiuchen had been watching the fire burning across the river. He had been watching with folded arms. Luo Jiuchen obviously wanted to force Xiuema to become a demon. He had become a truly cold-blooded and merciless demon who had slaughtered countless people. Was Luo Jiuchen trying to create a real opponent for him? Did he know that Shun Juli cared about this girl? So he used this trick to force Xiuema into becoming a demon and let him and her fight each other, so that Luo Jiuchen could benefit from it? He had figured out Luo Jiuchen's plot, but what about Xiuema? She seemed to have known a lot of things long ago. She seemed to want to change something, but also seemed to want to push something. Now, she was actually talking in her sleep and calling herself mother. In short, her actions were beyond Shun Juli's expectations. If it was someone else who dared to be so secretive in front of him, he would either chase that person out or use some means to dig out that person's background. But not for her. Against her, he couldn't use many means and couldn't use them. So, he preferred her to tell him herself. Ning Xiuema slept very soundly. When she woke up, she felt refreshed, and all the discomfort disappeared. She got up, stretched her hands and feet, and then dressed up in front of the mirror. The mirror reflected her delicate and lovely face, big round eyes, small mouth, and 2 dimples on her face when she smiled. Chapter 1951. This was little Xiuema's face, which was also her face when she was 12 or 13 years old. Luo Jiuchen, that bastard, had the heart to lay his hands on such a cute child and let her suffer so much. What was even more infuriating was that this bastard had caused little Xiuema to be so miserable and had replaced Shun Juli as the master of heaven and earth 50,000 years later. Now, he was so proud of himself. Just thinking about it made her so angry that she had a toothache. So, she must find a way to kill him. Ning Xiuema thought of the heaven's water poison again and remembered that she was a 7th-level alchemist. Her eyes turned slightly. Shun Juli's alchemist level was enough. Why didn't she ask him for advice on how to level up quickly? He was a ready-made master. Thinking of this, she couldn't stay in the house for a moment and ran out. Fantion Palace was very big. Its layout was a bit similar to Shun Juli's palace on Buddha Lotus Mountain in Tianxi Continent, but it was a few times bigger. There were many pavilions and terraces inside. It was almost as if the scenery was changing with every step, but Ning Xiuema wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. She walked around Fantion Palace, but still couldn't find Shun Juli's whereabouts. Strange, where'd he go? Ning Xiuema was puzzled when a melodious sound of the zither suddenly came from afar. Her eyes lit up and immediately followed the sound of the zither. Soon, she got close to the isolated big stone peak. The sound of the zither came from above. Ning Xiuema bitterly raised her head to look at it. She had the urge to kick that lonely peak. It was so high. With her current ability, she couldn't go up and could only wander around below. As the old saying goes, a gentleman listens to the zither but doesn't speak. Ning Xiuema pondered for a moment. If she continued to be a gentleman, she definitely couldn't go up. So, she took a deep breath and shouted, "I want to go up, or you can come down." Her voice wasn't soft and could be heard from afar, but the sound of the zither was still tinkling and didn't even stop. The circling birds in the sky that were attracted by the sound of the zither became more and more. Could it be that he didn't hear it? Ning Xiuema pinched the space between her eyebrows. It wasn't that she wanted to waste her time, but her time was really precious. She wanted to take advantage of these few days to learn alchemy. Should she howl again? Just as she was hesitating, a phoenix cry came from the sky. A big red fire phoenix suddenly flew down and landed at Ning Xiuma's feet, nodding at her. Vermilion bird. Her fiery red feathers were overflowing with light, and she stood there with her chest puffed out like a ball of fire. She was both majestic and beautiful. Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. Was he sent by Shenjuli? She approached the fire phoenix. The fire phoenix looked at her with its red phoenix eyes, as if it was calculating her weight. It had a sense of superiority. How could a bird look down on her? There was even pressure coming from his body. Ning Xiuma's lips curled up slightly. She pulled on its feathers and jumped on its back in the blink of an eye. The fire phoenix probably wanted to give her a show of strength. Just as Ning Xiuma jumped on its back, it let out a long cry and shot up into the sky like a rocket launcher. Fortunately, Ning Xiuma knew from its eyes that this little bird was probably going to give her a show of strength. She was already prepared. Just as she landed on its back, she pulled on its feathers tightly. Her body was almost in the air, but she didn't have any intention of falling down. She only cursed in her heart. Shouldn't such a big bird be gliding when taking off? It could actually fly up in a straight line like a helicopter. This was simply unscientific. Although Ning Xiuma lost her psychokinesis, fortunately, she didn't lose her strength. Chapter 1952. Although Ning Xiuma had lost her psychokinesis, she did not lose her strength. In this lifetime, she had also ridden a few perverted birds, so she already had experience. She was not afraid, but because her body was suspended in the air, almost all of her weight was supported by her two hands. Her small hands were somewhat tight. This vermilion bird probably wanted to test her ability to adapt. Its speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Especially after flying to the peak, it rushed up for a long time, then turned around and swooped down again. After landing, it retracted its wings and stood there arrogantly, continuing to listen to the zither with its neck raised. Obviously, it was urged by Shenjuli to go down to pick up people, and it was a little unwilling to be interrupted. So, it wanted to give Ning Xiuma a show of strength and vent its anger. Ning Xiuma almost vomited after being tossed around by the vermilion bird. She steadied herself on the vermilion bird's back and suddenly leaned forward. Her two small hands stuffed something into the vermilion bird's ears. Vermilion bird suddenly could not hear anything. In the time it was stunned, Ning Xiuma had turned over and ran to Shenjuli's side. Although vermilion bird was not small, its ears were not big. Once something was stuffed into its ears, it would be difficult for it to get it out. Such a beautiful zither sound could not be heard all the time. Vermilion bird was anxiously patting its ears with its wings. After all, its wings weren't as nimble as a human's. After tossing and turning for a long time, it still didn't come out. It also didn't dare to let out a long cry to disturb the supreme divinity. It anxiously circled around in circles, its pair of eyes firmly staring at Ning Xiuma. Ning Xiuma just acted as if she did not see its murderous gaze. She sat next to Shenjuli and listened to the zither with a smile. The sound of the zither slowly stopped. Shenjuli looked at her and then looked at the vermilion bird who was walking over. He shook his head and said, "Naughty." Vermilion bird stretched out its head and wanted Shenjuli to look at its ears. Shenjuli had no intention of relieving it of its difficulties at all. His fingers gently stroked the strings of the zither as he said lightly, "Who did you offend? Let that person deal with it for you." The vermilion bird understood and could only turn its gaze towards Ning Xiuma. Ning Xiuma pretended not to see it and pulled Shenjuli's sleeve. "Guru, how about another song?" She felt that the Almighty's music could not only attract birds to listen to it, but it also had the effect of adjusting her meridians. Finally, there seemed to be a little bit of energy in her stomach. What's more, the vermilion bird's ear was stuffed with a feather she plucked from its body. If the Almighty played again and it still couldn't hear it, it would be even more impatient and regretful. Shenjuli looked at her. "Do you know how to play?" Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. She nodded. "Yes." Shenjuli's eyes flashed, and he stepped aside. "Come, play a song." Ning Xiuma sat in front of the zither and lowered her eyes for a moment. She stretched out her fingers and fell on the zither. Ding, ding, dong, dong. She had memories of little Shuima and knew that little Shuima couldn't sit still. Although she liked to listen to Shun Julie play the zither, she didn't like to play the zither. Shun Julie must have known this as well. He probably wanted to test her by asking her to play the zither. In fact, she couldn't wait to let Shun Julie discover more of her abnormalities and arouse his curiosity so that he could explore the truth for himself. Therefore, she naturally played very hard at this moment. Although her zither skills were not as good as Shun Julie's, she could still be considered a top master. Chapter 1953. Once an expert reached out his hand, he would know whether he was skilled or not. Shun Julie knew that she was an expert when he saw her fingering skills. The tune she played was a little weird, but it was very beautiful and pleasant to the ears. It even gave him a sense of familiarity, but he couldn't remember where he had heard it before. Ning Shuima played The Moon Reflected in Two Springs, which was originally a classic of the Eru. However, when played with the guqin, it had a different flavor. It was like a clear spring flowing on top of the mountain. Shun Julie listened quietly, deep in thought. With his strong memory, he could remember a good tune forever after listening to it once. He would never forget it. In his memory, he had never heard this song before, but what was with this inexplicable sense of familiarity? A person who obviously didn't know how to play the guqin could suddenly play such a beautiful tune. Other than being possessed by a ghost, there was almost no other explanation. However, the soul was obviously the same. Even if they were twins and looked exactly the same, their souls were still different. This was absolutely impossible to fake. Shun Julie looked at her sideways, speculating all kinds of possibilities. When the song ended, Ning Shuima stopped playing and looked at him. Her eyes were as bright as stars. How was it? Was it nice? Not bad. Where did you learn this tune? A place you have never been to. Ning Shuima said tentatively. After saying that, there was a moment of silence. Not bad. She didn't reveal the secret of heaven, so she didn't get sent back. The 6 realms were huge, and there were places that Shun Julie had not been to. He shook his head and said, "This is the first time I'm listening to this song that you're playing. Somehow, it feels familiar." Ning Shuima's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He felt familiar? When she followed Shun Julie to gain experience in the Tianxi continent, she had played this tune for him. Other times, she had never played it. Then how could he feel a sense of familiarity from 50,000 years ago? Could it be that he also transmigrated? No. If he also transmigrated here, he should be able to recognize her. Perhaps his old illness had relapsed, and he had lost his memory when he transmigrated? Did he lose his memory again? Guru, did you forget something? For example, losing a part of your memory? Ning Shuima's eyes sparkled. Shun Julie shook his head. No, he had all of his memories from the moment he was born. It was impossible for him to lose his memories. Think about it again. Maybe you don't even know if you lost it. Ning Shuima didn't give up. Shun Julie glanced at her. Why did you say that I lost my memory? How did you deduce that? Ning Shuima coughed. This song. Actually, I played it for you before. When? Where is it? Ning Shuima rubbed her eyebrows with a headache. The abnormal god didn't let her tell the truth. What should she say? Suddenly, she had an idea. In a dream, looking at Shun Julie's disapproving expression, Ning Shuima continued to talk to him like she was talking in a Zen language. Guru, let me tell you the story of Zhuang Shengxiao's dream of a butterfly. She was very eloquent. She told the story in a clear and logical way, explaining the cause and effect very clearly. Finally, she sighed and said, "Actually, people are very strange sometimes. Sometimes, what you think of as a dream might be reality, and what you think of as reality might be a dream. It depends on how you look at it. Maybe both the dream and reality are real." Chapter 1954. Shun Julie listened to her, as if she was beating around the bush. Finally, he said slowly, "Are you saying that some dreams are real? For example, you said that you played this song for me in the dream, but in fact the dream was real? Smart. Ning Xiuma nodded. In that real dream, not only did you play the guqin in front of me, but you also gave birth to a child. Is the child named Nianma? Shun Juli sat there and tapped the stone next to him with a faint smile. Ning Xiuma was stunned and blurted out, "How do you know so clearly? Have you read my memory?" Shun Juli raised his hand and knocked her head. Stupid. The person being read must be awake to read the memory. Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. She could not tell him, but what if? What if he read her memory? Perhaps he would know the whole truth. However, if he knew, he would also know what would happen next. He was the divine lord who guarded this world. If he knew in advance, would he try to stop it? If that was the case, history would change drastically. Her little Nianma would not be able to come back. With Shun Juli's character, it was impossible for him to ignore the safety of the 6 realms for a child. Perhaps he would persuade her to have another child in the future. Therefore, when Ning Xiuma wanted to ask him to read her memory, she swallowed it back. She stood up and walked around the mountain. Suddenly, she turned to Shun Juli and asked, "Great God, have you ever thought that one day the Fantion Palace will belong to someone else?" Shun Juli answered casually, "It is just a worldly possession." He meant that he did not care. Ning Xiuma pouted. "What if that person is Luo Jiuchen? Not only did he take away your divine position, but he also coveted your wife and plotted against your child?" Shun Juli frowned slightly and said coldly, "He has to have the ability to do so." Ning Xiuma coughed. What if he has already done it? He has already snatched your deity position and is forcing your wife and children to do the same. Shun Juli raised his eyebrows. "Does he think I'm dead?" Ning Xiuma thought to herself, "You are indeed dead in that world. Otherwise, that bastard would not dare to be so arrogant." Ning Xiuma hugged his arm and said, "Master, how could someone like Luo Jiuchen be worthy of being a divine venerable? Don't you think so? His character is too despicable." Shun Jili raised his hand and stroked her hair. "Indeed, it's just the heavenly Tao. Don't worry, with me here, he can't overturn the heavens." Ning Xiuma sighed inwardly. "I was afraid that you wouldn't be here." She sat there plucking at the strings, pondering what to say. Shun Jili picked her up and put her on his lap. He looked in her eyes and said, "You have a lot on your mind. Can't you tell me?" Ning Xiuma leaned lazily in his arms. She had too many misgivings, so naturally she could not say it out loud. She cheered herself up and hugged his neck. "Master, do you have a spell that can let me go back to the past?" She wanted to learn this first. If the master knew this, she would not be afraid. If she accidentally let it slip and was transmigrated back, she could find a way to transmigrate back. Go back to the past. What do you mean? Shun Jili raised his eyebrows. For example, you want to go back to the time when you were just born and wore open crotch pants. I didn't wear open crotch pants. Shun Jili did not know whether to laugh or cry, but there was a hint of ridicule in his eyes. You want to go back to that time? Ning Xiuma giggled. Maybe I'll have another dream, and I'll be able to see you as a cute child. Chapter 1955. Shun Juli's eyes flickered. You're talking about dreaming again? Again? He was indeed smart, to be able to grasp the key point in her words. Ning Xiuma struck while the iron was hot. That's right, who knows, the current you might be my... She suddenly paused. You what? Shun Juli continued to pursue. He's my dearest husband. Ning Xiuma changed her words. She almost blurted out the words 50,000 years. She clearly remembered that the last time she had said this sentence, she had returned with a whoosh. She shook his arm. I'm the one asking you. Do you have any ideas? Shun Jili shook his head. I've never heard of this before. It's impossible for people to return to the past. That's because you're ignorant and inexperienced. This sister had transmigrated from the future. Ning Xiuma rarely met a place where she could embarrass this great god, but it was a pity that she couldn't say it out loud, so she couldn't help but feel unhappy. But if even he didn't have any ideas, then she had to be even more cautious. Speaking of which, she seemed to have the physique of transmigrating while sleeping. When she was in the modern era, She had transmigrated to Tionci continent and became another person. Now that she had transmigrated again, she had directly transmigrated to 50,000 years ago. But since God had given her this physique, he probably wanted to send her over to change her fate, right? She had to grab hold of this opportunity. She couldn't let it go. She had to use every minute and second of transmigrating to this world to do her own things. Ning Xiuma finally remembered the reason why she was looking for him. That's right, great God. Can you teach me alchemy? Shunjili looked at her from head to toe. Are you sure? The year when I taught you alchemy, not only did you destroy a bunch of my medicinal herbs, you even blew up my alchemy furnace. Ning Xiuma knew that he was talking about little Xiuma's embarrassing childhood, so she coughed. People will change. Now my alchemy skills have reached level 7. Shunjili sized her up again, suddenly carried her, and walked away. Show me how to refine it. Inside the medicine refining room, Ning Xiuma skillfully refined a cauldron of level 7 pills. Shunjili had been watching her from the side, seeing her skillful movements and techniques. His eyes flashed even more fiercely. Ever since he had slept with Ning Xiuma, he had become suspicious of her identity. During the days when Ning Xiuma reverted to little Xiuma, he secretly went to the Devil Realm to investigate. He learned about little Xiuma's living habits and skills, and knew that she didn't know how to refine medicine at all. The medicine she had was basically given to her by her subordinates. But now he had suddenly reached the 7th level of alchemy. Combined with what she had said on a mountain peak, an inference formed in his mind. Could she really be from the future? Was that even possible? Great Master, what do you think of my refining? Ning Xiuma stood on her tiptoes and shook the pill in her hand in front of his eyes. Shunjili picked it up and looked at it, then nodded. Not bad. Ning Xiuma smiled and narrowed her eyes. Do you believe me now? Come, quickly tell me. How can I quickly improve my alchemy skills? She was almost hugging his neck like a swing. After she reverted to little Xiuma's appearance, she relied on her lowly appearance in front of her sweetheart, so her personality was very lively. Shunjili looked at her round and bright eyes and calmly said, Is your body better? Ning Xiuma was anxious to learn alchemy, so when she heard him ask this, she immediately jumped up and down. Of course. Shunjili quietly looked at her blushing little face. Chapter 1956. Shunjili looked at her blushing face. Her skin was so tender that he wanted to take a bite out of it. Her eyes were bright. The little girl recovered very quickly. She was as lively as before after a nap. He raised his hand and pinched her cheek. He said calmly, You have to pay a price for learning from me. Ning Xiuma did not react for a while. What price? She raised her eyebrows. With our current relationship, do you still need me to pay you? It is very useful. Shunjili had a faint smile in his eyes. And I only want one kind of payment. Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. Her face was slightly red. The payment you want is you. Shunjili touched her body. After a flash of white light, Ning Xiuma returned to her appearance of a 16 or 17-year-old girl. In the blink of an eye, Ning Xiuma found herself back in her bedroom. She felt the world spinning around her as she was pressed onto the bed. Perhaps it was because absence made the heart grow fonder. Shunjili and Ning Xiuma were entangled with each other for a long time, and they were especially passionate. Ning Xiuma felt like she was a dough being kneaded into various shapes by him. When she was aroused, she cooperated with him very well. Overall, the two of them rolled around the bed to their heart's content. Ning Xiuma felt that her body was already strong enough, but after this round of tossing and turning, she once again fell asleep in his embrace. Shunjili was a man of his words. The next day, Ning Xiuma woke up in his arms. Shunjili told her how to quickly improve her medicine refining skills. However, there are only 4 words: study hard and practice hard. Ning Xiuma immediately felt that she had been tricked by a big bad wolf. She was so angry that she flipped over and sat on top of him to settle the score. However, she forgot that a man in the morning was the most dangerous in the end. It was too horrible to look at, she was once again taken aback by him, and he even said with certainty that she was the one who initiated it. Fortunately, Shanjili didn't want to wrong her too much, lest she go crazy. Not only did he give her a real full-body massage, he also helped her relax her muscles and bones so that she could quickly recover her strength. He also accompanied her in the medicine refining room for the whole day and gave her a few words of advice from time to time. He was indeed a very qualified master. Every word of advice was concise and comprehensive and went straight to the core, which benefited Ning Xiuema a lot. His alchemy skill had improved. This kind of skill was indeed not something that could be improved in a short period of time. However, with the help of Shanjili, Ning Xiuema still managed to master the real rapid leveling of the alchemy skill. She believed that at this rate, her alchemy skill should be able to reach level 9 in less than a month. When the time came, he would be able to refine the heavenly water poison to restrain Luo Jiuqin. She also remembered the location of the 3 other medicinal herbs, so she asked Shanjili for advice. Ning Xiuema felt that Shanjili was definitely a big bad wolf who wouldn't suffer any losses. Every time she asked for advice, she had to pay a price. Moreover, it was the kind that didn't accept credit. Hence, in order to get the location of the 3 medicinal herbs, Ning Xiuema paid a total of 4 prices. Originally, it was 3 times. The other time, he said that it was a buy 3, get 1 free discount. Ning Xiuema got up from the bed angrily and told him that she was the buyer. She had bought his information 3 times, so he should give her other information once more. That would be called buy 3, get 1 free. However, Shanjili turned his head and smiled at her lazily. You're right. I should give you something for free. However, I have the final say on what I give you. Don't you think so? Chapter 1957. Ning Xiuema pondered for a moment. Usually, when it came to buy 1 get 1 free deal, the one that was given to the seller was the one that was chosen by the seller and not the customer. However, Shanjili was full of treasures, and his knowledge was as vast as the ocean. No matter what he gave her, it should be something precious. Thus, she nodded and agreed. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at him. Then what are you giving me? Shanjili was lying on the bed. His clothes were half open, and his jade-like skin was faintly discernible. He was lying casually, and he looked lazy and flirtatious. However, the words that came out of his mouth were very annoying. How about giving it to me? I can let you do whatever you want of me this time. Ning Xiuema was speechless. She picked up the pillow next to her and threw it at his handsome face. She replied to him directly, no. Shanjili laughed loudly. His laughter was so clear that it could be heard from outside the hall. Shanjili was born with a cold temperament. Ning Xiuema had never seen him laugh like this in her life. After getting out of bed, she rubbed her sore waist and looked at him in surprise. Master, I didn't know that you could laugh like this. I've been entangled with you for 3. She wanted to say that she had never seen him laugh like this in her 3 lifetimes. However, before she could finish her sentence, she felt a tightness in her chest, and her vision turned black. Shanjili watched her suddenly fall. He did not have time to think and quickly held her. However, her body shrank rapidly in his arms and returned to the appearance of a 12 or 13 years old. She opened her eyes. Her eyes were as clear as crystal, as if she had just woken up from a dream. Jili? Shanjili felt as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water on him. He felt cold from head to toe. Mother. A tender and cheerful voice awakened Ning Xiuema's consciousness. She opened her eyes and saw Shen Nianma's delicate face. The child was looking at her with surprise. When he saw that she had opened her eyes, he rushed into her arms. Mother, you slept for 5 days again. You almost scared him to death. He was probably extremely aggrieved as he lay in her arms and cried. His tears had soaked her clothes. I'm back. For a moment, Ning Xiuema felt as if she was dreaming. What was a dream? What is reality? Even she felt confused for a moment. If it were not for little Nianma, she would not have come back. However, when she held little Nianma's chubby body in her arms and saw the little guy's big eyes, she was glad that she came back in time. She had slept for another 5 days. Little Nianma must have been frightened. She turned over and sat up. Her body was clearly very weak before she fell asleep, and she could barely walk on her own. But now, she didn't feel any discomfort. She held the little fellow in her arms. The little fellow hugged her tightly and clung to her body, as if he was afraid that she would run away again. Although she was touched to receive such a warm hug from her son, she also felt a little helpless. She rubbed the little guy's head. Nianma, I was too tired and slept for 5 days. You don't have to worry. Little Nianma sobbed. But you don't seem to be asleep. You don't even breathe, and your heart has stopped beating. General Manager Himu and the rest were even more anxious than Nianma. They had invited many doctors over, but all of them said that it was hopeless. If his mother had not slept with him before, Nianma would have thought that his mother was a goner. I really don't want to live anymore. Chapter 1958. When such a young child suddenly said that he did not want to live anymore, it was extremely frightening. Ning Xuema held his arm tightly. Don't talk nonsense. Nianma, you have to live well. Nianma is my sweetheart. Her heart skipped a beat. It turned out that her so-called dream was not sleeping, but a real out-of-body experience. It was as if she was dead. No wonder the child was afraid. She could not explain how guilty she felt toward the child. The child was still so young, but he had experienced so much. He was even more troubled than her. She did not give the child much love, but she gave him a lot of shocks. She was not a qualified mother. She held the child in her arms and patted and comforted him. Finally, the little guy stopped crying and smiled. She whispered in the child's ear, Baby, if you see me in this situation in the future, you don't have to be nervous. I just went out to do something. I will come back. I will not abandon you, understand? What is mother going out to do? Can you bring Nianma with you? Shin Nianma's knowledge of metaphysics was still very rich, so he vaguely knew about the out-of-body experience. Ning Xuema sighed. If she could bring the child with her, she would have done so long ago. She wiped the little guy's face and said in a low voice, Nianma, I am busy because of your father's return. Little Nianma's eyes lit up. Father, chill. Ning Xuema pressed a finger on his little mouth. Good baby, you must not let anyone else know about this. Do you understand? Little Nianma nodded obediently. Okay, no matter when, no matter what the situation is, you can't tell anyone. Ning Xuema reminded him again. Okay, I will listen to you. Little Nianma vowed. Ning Xuema was relieved. She told her son in advance so that the little guy would not be worried if she traveled in the future. She also told her son, Baby, if you encounter such a situation in the future, you just need to protect my body so that I will not be taken away by the beast. I will come back sooner or later. Little Nianma nodded and answered seriously, Okay, I will listen to you, mother. Ning Xuema breathed a sigh of relief. She found that she was still in the small courtyard where Shun Julie had lived. It seemed that her subordinates did not dare to move her because she suddenly stopped breathing. The 8 mythological beasts guarding outside heard the commotion inside and sent Baizé in to take a look. Seeing the mother and son hugging each other, Baizé immediately heaved a sigh of relief and retracted his head back to report the good news to his companions. The news of her awakening spread very quickly, and the outside world was practically in a state of jubilation. Ning Xuema could hear that there were quite a lot of people in this small courtyard. Suddenly, she thought of something, and her expression changed. She jumped out of bed and ran out of the door. When she saw everything in the courtyard, she gasped. The 8 mythological beasts were all in their original forms, walking majestically in the courtyard. Manager Heimu and a few other guardians of the Mo Palace were also in the small courtyard. The small courtyard was not big, so it was crowded because of the presence of these people. There were even 2 people standing in the flower bed. All of you get out. Ning Xuema sternly shouted, scaring the jubilant crowd. They all turned their heads to look at her. Those people were originally going to pay their respects, but they were also shocked by her shout and looked at her in a daze. Ning Xuema took a deep breath and calmly said, All of you get out. In the future, no one is allowed to come in without my permission. Chapter 1959. Although everyone did not know what was going on, they quickly left the place. Mother. Little Nianma did not understand why his mother was so harsh. Ning Xiuma did not bother to answer him. After everyone left, she rushed to the flower bed. The flower bed was trampled beyond recognition, and many of the weeds were flattened. It looked like a mess. Ning Xiuma's face was pale. She carefully and cautiously searched the area in her memory. She pushed aside the flattened grass and looked for the little lotus that she had worked so hard to find. After a while, she finally found it. Then, she heaved a long sigh of relief and sat on the ground. The little lotus was still there, but the leaves at the corner had been scratched and were a little injured. However, the green was still very attractive. Moreover, in these 5 days, it seemed to have grown a little taller. It looked very delicate. Ning Xiumo remembered Miao Fan's words. She said that Shun Julie's original body crawled out from the lotus. So, this strange little lotus could be the original body of Shun Julie. Perhaps, when it grew up and bloomed, Shun Julie would come back. When Miao Fan told her about this, the first thing that came to her mind was this little lotus. She gently stroked the leaves with her fingers and could feel the wisps of spiritual aura on it. She carefully took care of the little lotus. Little Nianma also squatted beside her and curiously looked at the little lotus, which was not as thick as Xiao Qiao. Mother, do you also plant flowers? He reached out his little hand and wanted to play with it. This little thing doesn't look special. Ning Xiuma's lips twitched. If this little lotus was really Shun Julie, it was not a little thing to Shun Nianma. She stopped her son's little hand so that he wouldn't hurt it. You'll know what's special about it after it blooms. Nianma, this flower is very important to me. You must not let anyone hurt it. You have to protect it well. Do you understand? Shin Nianma nodded solemnly. Yes, I will take good care of it. I will not let anyone pluck it. Mother, what kind of flower is it? Lotus. Ning Xiuma paused for a moment before telling her son. Shin Nianma's eyes widened. Mother, are you mistaken? Don't lotus flowers grow in ponds? Ning Xiuma nodded seriously. That's why I said it's a unique flower. She then reminded her son, Nianma, you have to protect this flower secretly. You must never tell anyone about its species or its preciousness. Sometimes, the more you care about something, the easier it is for it to be used against you. Although Ning Xiuma knew that most of the people in Mo Palace were her own people, she couldn't guarantee that no one had been bribed by Luo Jiuchen. She was afraid that Luo Jiuchen knew Shun Julie's original identity. If he knew that such a lotus had grown here, the consequences would be unimaginable. Before Shun Julie came back, Ning Xiuma must not take the risk. Okay. Nianma nodded again. Ning Xiuma breathed a sigh of relief. Strangely, it had not rained recently, so the soil in the garden had been quite moist. Ning Xiuma did not dare to add water to the little lotus. Perhaps the surrounding grass had been trampled, so the little lotus looked a little weak. Ning Xiuma pondered for a moment and looked at her son. Nianma, be good. Take a drop of blood. Just a small drop will do. Chapter 1960. Shin Nianma nodded. Sure enough, he pricked his finger with the needle, and a drop of blood came out. Ning Xiuma dipped a little bit of the blood and smeared it on the lotus. A moment later, the little drop of blood was absorbed by the lotus and disappeared. The lotus seemed to be a little more energetic. Nianma's blood was really useful. Ning Xiuma was more confident now. She was even more convinced that the lotus belonged to Shun Julie. She smeared the drop of blood from Nianma's finger on the lotus. The lotus shook a little and absorbed the drop of blood after a while. The leaf not only looked a lot greener, but it also seemed to have grown a little. Shin Nianma also noticed it. His eyes lit up. Mother, my blood is good for it. Before Ning Xiuma could say anything, he pricked another big drop of blood and dripped it on the lotus. Ning Xiuma quickly stopped her son. You don't have to give it so much. Although she wanted Shun Julie to come back soon, she did not want her son to suffer too much. This time, the lotus could not eat anymore. It shook for a while, but the blood still rolled on the leaf. It seemed that it had an appetite. Ning Xuema was worried that it would eat too much, so she wiped the drop of blood away and reminded her son, "Don't give it too much. Just give it a drop every few days." She looked at her son's finger. Shin Yinma's recovery ability was comparable to his father's. In just a short while, the needle hole had disappeared. "Mother, what will happen when it blossoms?" Little Yinma was excited. "Maybe it will grow a father for you." Ning Xuema coughed. She did not want to tell her son anything that was not reliable. If it was not, it would be cruel to let her son down. It will be very beautiful when it blooms. "Well, you will know when the time comes." Ning Xuema did not want to talk about it. Shin Yinma wanted to help the lotus grow faster, so he wanted to remove the weeds for it. However, Ning Xuema stopped him and said that the lotus also needed company. It wouldn't be conspicuous in a pile of weeds, so it wouldn't arouse suspicion. Ning Xuema was still worried. She walked out of the door and told Bai Zhe to send 2 reliable divine beasts to guard this small courtyard. No one was allowed to enter. Of course, in order to prevent the secret from being leaked, Ning Xuema did not mention anything about Xiao He. She only said that the Divine Lord had stayed in this place before. She wanted to keep this place as it was. She did not want to touch any grass, trees, tables, or stools. The 8 mythological beasts understood her feelings for the supreme divinity, so they agreed without hesitation. Of course, head steward Ning Xuema had also used the same reason to instruct him. Head steward Heimu was a very reliable person. He didn't have any suspicions, so he restrained all his subordinates. After doing all this, Ning Xuema felt slightly relieved. She actually wanted to plant the little lotus in her storage space, but she couldn't. Her storage space wasn't suitable for growing plants. She casually asked her son about the situation in the past 5 days. Shin Yinma told her that the Mo Palace was relatively peaceful. Luo Jiuqin had come to visit, but he was politely rejected by head steward Heimu. He said that his great devil master was not feeling well, so it was not convenient for him to meet guests. Only then did he leave. Ning Xuema secretly clenched her fists. Obviously, the pervert had not given up on her. Perhaps he would come up with other bad ideas. She had to be careful. Fortunately, the third condition that little Yinma gave him was not to hurt any of the original Divine Lord's belongings. Before Luo Jiuqin became the master of heaven and earth, he would not dare to do anything to her and her mother. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.